Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to reconvene City Council Successor Agency to the Westminster Redevelopment Agency meeting. Right now is 1:22 p.m. Friday, July 1st, 2022. Roll call.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor Tall,
Here.
Vice Mayor Manzo,
I'm here.
Councilmember Doe,
I'm here.
Councilmember Ho,
I'm here.
Councilmember Nguyen.
I'm here.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
I'm here.
All right, so council member
Thank you.
here. Okay, so salute to the flag will be Vice Mayor Menzo.
Mayor, since I'm having technical issues,
Okay, so then
we have someone else
Councilmember
do
Doe, can you do it?
Absolutely. Will you rise? Okay, ready? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilmember Doe. Next, we have report from City Attorney.
There's nothing to report from the closed session.
So next we have oral communication for matters only on the agenda.
Thank you, Mayor. This is the time of the meeting that members of the public may address the City Council regarding items only on the agenda. The time allowed will be limited to 5 minutes per speaker unless otherwise extended by a majority vote of the City Council. Any person wishing to speak at this time may raise their hand via Zoom or may press *9 to raise your hand if you are reaching us via phone. We did have we had 3 requests to speak in advance. And at this time, I will call on Tony Bowie. Mr. Bowie, you may begin speaking now.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Good afternoon, City Mayor and City Council member of City of Westminster. I'm Tony Bowie, a resident of Westminster for 20 years. And I'm really concerned about the city that has been in turmoil due to many things. First thing, all of you should know that July 1st is Canada Independence Day. July 4th, 3 days will be United States of America Independence Day. And the 14th of July is the French Independence Days. So they are very important to our democracy. However, Westminster is not independent. Why? Because the 3 city council, Kimberly Hall, Tidal, and Carlos Menzo, had abused the powers of majority votes to create problems for the city. Shame on all of 3 of you. Why I say so? Because all of you did not pass the ethical test, which gave it to the city of Westminster. If you pass it, then you will not create problems for our city through the Measure C. 3 of you had colluded to bring Measure C up for voting with West City budget more than $300,000 and make a lot of people worry if they're right to vote for the right person to be mayor, be disfranchised. So, Kimberly Hall, Carlo Menzo, Tidal, you are not working for the city of Westminster for the benefit, but you work for your own benefit. Shame on 3 of you. You should not be on that position. And if you plan to go out to running for the mayor, the next election, I think all of three of you will be shameful to be voted down by the people, by the residents of city of Westminster. All of you should know that you are the servant for the city of Westminster. You are elected to serve the people. You are not elected to bring up things here and there and cost our city a lot of money and a lot of time to solve the problem that you created. You are corrupted mind. And hereby, number 4, you talk about free speech and press conference held on June 24, 2022. I was there, and that was a off day of the city of Westminster. And every people has a chance to use the space outside. And I was there and had my free speech to talk about the people who had voted to turn down Measure C, which is your Measure C that 3 of you have colluded to make the city, to disrupt the peaceful of our city and to waste our city budget more than $300,000. So today I tell all the people, which will be recorded in this tape, that 3 of you, Kimberly Ho, Taido, and Carlos Mezzo, you 3 of you have violated the Brown Act and had do many bad things for city of Westminster. You are not worth to be our city council members. Get out here. Get out city manager, city council, or people will pull you down. Okay? Thank you very much for your listening. Thank you. I ended my.
Thank you. The next speaker to speak in advance is Dal Tran. You may unmute yourself and begin speaking.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. First, I want to talk about item number 2, which is the result of the June 7 election. Measure C for Westminster to have a rotational mayor was defeated by 60% said no and 40% said yes. I had to applaud Westminster citizens for their wise decision. Measure C originated by the ambition of some council members who wish to be mayor, but knowing that they will never win in the citywide election, only hope that with the majority in the city council, they will take turn to be mayor. Sadly, the ambition cost the taxpayers over $200,000. But the main item I want to talk today is item number 4 about the press conference that was held on June 24 by Council Member Charlie Chi Nguyen. Why someone in the City Council has to bring this up in the agenda when the City Attorney and City Manager already explained clearly in staff report? Was that because someone was so jealous when she was not smart and didn't have a great idea when announcing her mayor candidacy? Right after she lost her bid for State Assembly, and when the register of voters didn't certify the election result of Measure C. What a hypocrite you are, Mrs. Ho. You are a strong advocate for Measure C, telling people to vote yes to stop corruption as you stated. And now you couldn't even wait for the final count when you know your Measure C failed miserably to announce your candidacy. You are so hungry for power, and you, Mrs. O. Clearly, Councilman Nguyen had already asked the city attorney and city manager, and they said that they did not see any restriction on his ability to use the steps in front of the city hall for his press conference to announce his candidacy for mayor. Council member Nguyen did not violate any city rule on that day, did not use any city resources, any steps, nothing. He only practiced his freedom of speech protected by the First Amendment. Whoever in the city council that brings this up to the agenda tonight doesn't care about what the city attorney and city manager said. They think with their majority vote, they can vote to strip anyone's freedom of speech and condemn that person of breaking the law. Shame on them. They want to make their own rule, or I can see they are above the law, as they were many times. Now look at you three, Hodo and Menzo. From last year, from the special emergency meeting on Thursday, June 25th, just one day after the regular council meeting, until now. What did you do to build this city, or just created chaos from putting on hold indefinitely the original Quang Tri Monument project to removing the mayor's office out of the city hall, to censoring one person after another, violating their freedom of speech, to misleading community by spreading lies after lies about the mayor, to display your true low-class character by swearing and cursing in Vietnamese during a council meeting to your fellow council member. How much money from taxpayer have you wasted from council meeting until 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning just for ridiculous items such as removing the mayor's office or censoring of the council members who were not agreeing with you? And I want to ask Mrs. Ho, how much city resources your Quang Tri Monument Committee has used for their countless meetings that resulted in more fighting, more divisiveness, even within their committee, more violations of Browns Act. To conclude my speech,
Miss
I'm
Chen,
sorry.
I'm sorry. Okay, I want, there are some people with me. So can they speak?
I'm sorry, I have another speaker that had
But you can
requested
put
in advance.
them on the list to wait.
If once we'll put you back with your hand raised. I'll continue with the other people who have requested to, one other person speaking in advance and then the other ones that have their hands up.
Okay, so I put the hand now?
Yes, yes.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Our next speaker in advance is Monique Nguyen.
I'm confused. I just want to make sure I understand what just happened there. Is she
1
finished her
second.
5 minutes? Did she finish her 5 minutes?
Yes, her 5 minutes were up, and
Okay.
at the conclusion, she said that there were other people in the room with her that wanted to speak.
Monique,
I see. Okay.
Yes,
this is Monique. Can I start now?
yes, go ahead, please.
Okay. Honorable Mayor and members of the Westminster City Council, Mr. Mayor and council members. I attended the press conference of Councilman Charlie Nguyen last Friday in front of City Hall. It was a very successful and informative event. It was not a large event and concluded within an hour or so. I saw no problem with anyone since City Hall was closed for that business on that day, and the parking lot was pretty much vacant. Councilman Charlie Nguyen did a great job with his speech, and the people who were there were very happy that the press conference received lots of positive media coverage. It makes you proud as a longtime resident of this city to see that this local elected official is working closely with the people in his city, as it should be, because he is elected to represent the wish of his residents. I cannot say the same for Dido, Carlos Menzo, and Kimberly Ho. These three council members have come together to only create turmoil in the city. The last 3 years was an unending series of disputes, big and small, being brought on by one of these council members. It's shameful. Jealousy and other people's success and higher publicity is the driving force for putting on a dumb item on the meeting agenda like this. Nobody is jealous and self-centered as Kimberly Ho. The whole of Little Saigon know this, and that is why her name is no better than mud among the voters in this city. She's up to no good again, and for complaining about Mr. Charlie Nguyen's successful press event last week. Kimberly Ho cannot do this herself, but had to make a big sting about someone else's success. And of course, her opponent for the mayor's seat, Mr. Charlie Nguyen, can never be better than her, the bewitched Kimberly Ho. I wanted to address Kimberly Ho correctly here. Do you have any sense of decency? Do you respect yourself? You owe Charlie Nguyen an apology for your childish behavior on the council seat, and to own Westminster for burning taxpayer dollars, for daring even ask city staff to spend time and money on the matter like this. Shame on you, Kimberly Ho. Thank you for my time to speak today. I am
Hello, that concludes the speakers in advance. Now we're going to move on to the speakers that have their hand risen on Zoom. And the first one is Deborah Mariscal. You may begin.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, City Council, and residents that are on the Zoom call. Deborah Mariscal, Westminster since 2000. Mine's really quick today. I'm trying to juggle my employment with spending time on this Zoom meeting when I should be working. And I understand that it's probably a little difficult for the five of you to juggle your schedules, but the residents' time is important as well. And so for me, it would have been better if I could have just gone to the chambers and been there, and instead of being on Zoom and having a little bit more notice. And for both of you that are running for mayor, I just have a question. It seems like the majority of things that you are doing to try to get your name out there are specifically to a certain segment of the residents of Westminster. What about those of us that are not Asian? Are you trying to include us? It doesn't seem like it to me. I haven't seen anything except promotion in Vietnamese. Just curious. That's all I have to say.
The next speaker is Roger Mindrum. You may begin speaking.
Hello, good afternoon. This is Roger Mindrum, resident of Westminster. First of all, I'd like to request whoever all have requested this meeting with this agenda item, the main agenda item, to please explain your basis and your stance on this. And I'd like to say that in my experience and in my understanding of the law that's in question regarding is campaigning of any sort, whether it's verbal or signage, allowed on city property, public property, city hall. In my experience, it's never been allowed. Whether you like the law or not, you on the city council our city attorney or city manager, all of our city staff should be abiding by the law. And I take no offense, please, Mr. Benhausen, but I don't believe that this residents trust your judgment on some things. You have a very liberal view of the law, and you've accepted a lot of things that a lot of us have taken in experience that hasn't been accepted. So I honestly don't really trust what you've written on the staff report, and I don't really trust what the city council may do today, but I would like there to be some clarification above you, above the city attorney's office, above the city council, to a higher state of law. So this doesn't happen in the future, because even before this instance of this situation, it's been common knowledge to me and several of the people that I know that any signage, any campaigning is prohibited anywhere on that city civic center property. So why is it now? And I'm saying to say one other thing. I don't like to say anything bad about other people, other speakers, but it's pretty obvious that the prior speakers from me, besides Ms. Mariscal, have a script written with at least bullet points, probably by Charlie Wynn. So pretty despicable, if you ask me, when you're doing things like that. And you're not. It doesn't sound like they're real voices and their real thoughts. So that's all I have to say. Hopefully this gets a lot more clear on the rules and the laws of what's accepted. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker that has their hand written on raised on Zoom is Amy Walsh. You may begin.
Okay. So I want to second what both or what Roger just said, most definitely. So here's the thing. When I was on the school board, when I went to the registrar of voters office, they gave me a nice handy California campaign rules handbook. So in that book, I was informed that as a school board member, or candidate that was going for school board member, I could not do anything campaign related on or near school property. The same thing goes for, guess, I'll let you guys guess. Are you ready? City property for city council members and the mayor. So I, of course, wanted to look it up just to make sure I was on the, correct side, because I'm sure that Mr. Bettenhausen will, of course, want to look this up as well. Government Code 8314. It is unlawful for any elected state or local officer, including any state or local appointee, employee, or consultant, to use or permit others to use public resources for a campaign activity or personal or other purposes which are not authorized by law. Now, Government Code 8314 goes on and on and on, longer than I would have to talk. So people that are calling in and saying that it is against the law to do that, yes, it is. There's the Government Code 8341, in case anyone needs to write it down again. It is not anyone being jealous or anything along those lines. That's complete stupidity. I can't even right now. There's so much I cannot about this. It's stupid. Charlie and Tree, you have been on the council, and Tree mayor, for quite some time now. You know that this is a no. I feel like you have taken advantage of a new city manager. And Christian, I know I've picked my battles with you, but come on, man. You have been there long enough. You should know that. If not, if you don't know these things, what are we paying you for? At this point, I'm sorry, City Council, but you need new law representation, because I know that I'm not the only one that called fair political practices today. Guaranteed. I know that there's at least 4 other residents that called. Charlie, don't pretend like you don't know the laws. You do. And Tree, so do you. And you were there too. And that just angers me. Like, come on. Don't play dumb any longer. That's all.
The next speaker is Terry Raines. You may begin.
Good afternoon, Terry Raines, Westminster. I spoke just before the closed session earlier about how this meeting is being held in violation of the Brown Act's agenda requirements. The city should stop trying to circumvent the laws that protect us, the citizens, and start doing more to foster trust, transparency, and public participation. If the city and/or elected officials continue to violate the law, there will be even more costly litigation brought against the city, which will negatively affect us all. So do better, Westminster. As to item 4, the city attorney's opinion and the staff report are, how shall I say this, total bullshit. Missing the point entirely, or as Charlie would say, it's craps. This was not a short city business related press conference. It's a 1.5-hour political campaign event. Freedom of speech is not guaranteed when it violates state and local law. Residents, employees, and prominent attorneys in Orange County were absolutely shocked to see Councilman Nguyen's 1.5-hour political campaign event take place last Friday on the steps of City Hall. After watching videos of the event and translating the Vietnamese portions, I sent an email to the city manager and city attorney sharing my outrage and shock that this was allowed to take place. This event was a flagrant violation of Westminster Municipal Code 17.330.025. Political signs are not allowed on public property, period. And California Government Code 8314, which forbids the use of public resources for campaign or political or personal purposes. The latter is defined in Section B1 as purposes for the personal enjoyment, private gain, or advantage. Mr. City Attorney and Councilman Nguyen, let me further explain the statute to you since you don't seem to get it. Section B3 expressly defines public resources as any property or asset owned by any local agency, including but not limited to land. Let me repeat that, land, building, facilities, etc. City Hall steps or city-owned land. Section B4 defines the use of public resources as being substantial enough to result in a gain or advantage to the user. Section C1 states any person who violates this section is liable for a civil penalty up to $1,000. Cha-ching! Pay up, Councilman Nguyen, Mayor Ta, and City Attorney Bettenhausen, because Ta also campaigned at the event. This event also violated Municipal Code 2.04.130 related to public official and employee interactions. Some employees work at City Hall on Fridays. Those who saw or learned about this event were really upset. A prime example of intimidation of staff by elected officials. It sent the message that the city is endorsing Councilman Nguyen for mayor. Employees are angered and fearful, and I know this because they shared it with me in confidence and asked me to speak out on their behalf. So listen up, council. Have you ever witnessed a mayor candidate's political campaign event at a city hall, especially by sitting elected officials? No, because it's a clear violation of state law and their advisors would never let them do it. But Van Tran, Len Nguyen, and Christian Bettenhausen are not typical advisors or attorneys. They frequently and unethically bend their interpretation of law to benefit their favorite clients and themselves. When I asked to place flyers at the senior center about a neutral candidate meet and greet that contained no specific candidate support or political message, the city attorney denied my request, citing Section 8314. Yet candidate forums have been held in council chambers in the past. When Councilwoman Ho planned a campaign event at Sid Goldstein Freedom Park, the city attorney put a stop to it, again citing 8314. Mr. City Attorney, it is clear who on this council you bend the law for, Mayor Ta and Councilman Nguyen. But remember, it takes just 3 votes to terminate the city attorney. As I've said before, I really do like you as a person, but shit like this makes me really question your confidence and judgment. You called me twice this week wanting to talk about this issue, but absent a bona fide directly related Supreme Court ruling supporting your position, there is nothing for us to talk about. You are wrong here, period. Charlie first announced his mayor campaign on Viet News on June 17th. At the event on the 24th, several infamous politicians campaigned for him, including attorney and former state assemblyman Van Tran and attorney Garden Grove School District trustee Len Nguyen and Mayor Ta were among the dozens or so speakers who openly campaigned for Councilman Nguyen and in some cases themselves. Van Tran and Lan Quoc Nguyen have both filed complaints, claims, and or lawsuits against the city. There was a huge political sign banner displayed right against the building, just below the word City Hall, and another one on the podium. Mr. City Attorney, how does that not violate our political sign municipal code? By ignoring state and local laws, you have set a legal precedent that will be impossible to curtail. Westminster already has a reputation of having corrupt officials. This just proves that point, along with an inconsistent and biased city attorney. This council must take definitive action today and hold these people accountable. We, the residents and employees of Westminster, will not tolerate this abuse of power and corruption by our elected officials anymore. You can bank on that. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Dao Tran. Dao Tran has spoken, but just to clarify, she had other speakers that with her that wanted to speak. You may begin.
Hello. My name is Thiên Nguyen, Mayor Chita and City Council member. I Zoom and listen to both sides. The common sense is, I don't think Council member Charlie Nguyen responsible for any of this action, as he get the request permit from city attorney and the manager, city manager, approved for what his action last week. I was there. And you know, I lived here 9 years and 3-4 years. I hear nothing but complaining from all of this evil act of the three, gang of three, Kimberly Ho, Tai Do, and Carlos Manzo. I don't know how the hell you guys can sleep at night, okay? You elected to help the city and help the citizen, help the people. Instead of stop this evil act, okay? Simple as that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next speaker is a phone call with number 714. You may begin speaking.
Alo.
Yes, you may begin.
Kính thưa ông thị trưởng thành phố Westminster, tôi xin chào các nghị viên của thành phố Westminster. Tôi thật là lấy làm rất là phiền lòng khi mà có ý kiến trình bày về vấn đề số 4 của cái buổi họp báo mà nghị viên Charlie Nguyễn trước cửa City Hall, mà ngày hôm nay thành phố phải họp đột xuất về vấn đề này. Alo.
We don't have a translator on for
manager.
today's.
So,
Yeah, we don't have a translator for today's call.
So what should we do? Any staff that are willing to translate?
Hey, Jake.
So is it available, please?
I would just preface that if we are going to ask staff to do
Yes,
this, that it's
please.
going,
We
that
need
it's
someone
going,
to translate so the vice may understand. Yes.
I will try my best.
Okay.
Jake, do you want to just let her know that she needs like slow, and so you can break it up so that it's easier for whatever's easiest for you.
Okay. All right. Dạ thưa cô có thể bắt đầu được tiếp là đi ạ.
Dạ. Tôi không hiểu tại sao cái vấn đề này cũng được đưa ra thảo luận tại cái buổi họp đặc biệt như hôm nay.
She didn't understand why this issue has been brought up and for discussion for today.
Có cái điều gì mà phải khẩn cấp trong cái vấn đề này hay không vậy? Mà phải tốn tiền thuế của dân.
why does it have to be there urgent to have this item to be brought up, which is wasting the taxpayer money?
Tại sao Kimberly Hồ, Tài Đỗ và Carlos Menzo không có thể chờ đợi đến cái buổi họp thường kỳ sắp tới vào thứ Tư để đỡ tốn chi phí và công sức của nhân viên thành phố và tốn tiền của thuế của cư dân chúng tôi?
Why Councilwoman Kimberly Ho, Councilman Carlos Manzo, Vice Mayor Carlos Manzo, and Councilman Taido couldn't wait until the regular meetings on Wednesday, but instead wasting the city resources and taxpayer?
Tôi thật là đau lòng khi mà đến phút này những lá phiếu mà bầu sơ bộ vào tháng 6 vừa rồi đã nói lên cái sự tín nhiệm của người dân đối với từng người dân cử như thế nào, mà quý vị vẫn tiếp tục hành động phá rối cộng đồng như vậy.
I'm going to be quick and summarize on this one. I think it's painful for her to see why. I think it's that people or the residents have elected the council member and keep, I would say just create issue or problems with the community.
Theo cái cảm nhận của cá nhân tôi thấy cái việc mà ông Charlie Nguyễn vừa rồi mà ông tổ chức cái cuộc họp báo mà thông báo cái việc ứng cử thị trưởng vào tháng 11 này tại cái tiền sảnh của City Hall là một cái hình ảnh rất là rất là chính đáng, vì ông là nghị viên của thành phố Westminster.
In her opinions, Councilman Charlie has announced his candidacy for a mayor in front of the City Hall is the right thing because he's the city councilman.
Và tôi quan sát, tôi thấy rõ ràng ông Charlie Nguyễn hôm đó là ông không có hề đụng chạm gì đến những cái trụ cột của Westminster. Ông không có cột dây, cột nhợ, và tất cả là ông đều đem những cái chân đứng và ông làm, tức là ông chỉ làm ở trên cái mặt bằng của tiền sảnh. Mà tôi nghĩ cái việc đó đối với một nghị viên ứng cử thị trưởng làm như vậy là rất đẹp, rất là chuyên nghiệp, rất là pro.
On her observation, she didn't see anything attached to the column of the City Hall. Everything is on freestanding, and in her opinion, that is professional way to have the press conference.
Tôi xin lỗi bà Kimberly Hồ. 6 năm bà làm nghị viên, tôi không thấy bà có một idea nào hết á. Mà tôi thấy rõ ràng so sánh giữa bà với ông Charlie, thì ông Charlie là một người có rất nhiều idea. Và có thể vì cái idea mà ông thông cáo báo chí, ông ứng cử nghị viên quá là pro như vậy, đó là một cái sự ghen tức mà Kim Lô phải vội vã cùng với 2 nghị viên khác tổ chức cái buổi họp bất thường hôm nay.
She apologized to Councilwoman Kimberly Ho that Councilman Charlie Nguyen have a professionally professional press conference, and I think because of that she's jealous. I'm sorry. And then the last 6 years she didn't have any ideas, and Councilman Charlie compared to Councilman Charlie. Go ahead.
Cái kết quả bầu cử gần nhất là cái dự luật si mà bà Kimberly Hồ, Tài Đỗ và Menzo đưa ra đã thất bại hoàn toàn, đủ để hiểu là cái mong muốn của cộng đồng cư dân ở Westminster như thế nào rồi, thưa quý vị.
The reason Measure C was failed, that's reflecting the voices of the voters.
Tôi xin quý vị hãy chấm dứt ngay cái việc dùng tiền thuế của cư dân Westminster vào những cuộc họp đấu đá, vạch lá tìm sâu, bôi nhọ lẫn nhau, gây mất đoàn kết ở trong hội đồng thành phố như thế này nữa. Xin hãy chấm dứt.
She's just asking the city council stop, infighting and within the meetings like this.
Cư dân của chúng tôi muốn rằng các nghị viên thành phố phải dành thì giờ, dành trí tuệ của các vị để họp bàn thảo những vấn đề lợi ích cho cư dân để nâng cao thành phố. Chứ chúng tôi không bầu quý vị lên để mà phe phái, chia rẽ và bôi nhọ lẫn nhau vào những cuộc họp như thế này. Chúng tôi rất mệt mỏi.
She would like to have, the city council to be more constructive, moving its city forward instead of infighting and divisive among the city council members.
Mà khi chúng tôi lên tiếng á, thì ông Tài Đỗ đưa ra mất 1 tiếng đồng hồ để trình bày, nói rằng chúng tôi đưa fake news, mà hoàn toàn chúng tôi không đưa fake news. Và nếu như quý vị cứ làm như thế này thì chúng tôi sẽ còn tiếp tục nói cho đến bao giờ Kimberly Hồ và Tài Đỗ và Menzo phải chấm dứt cái việc cấu kết 3 cái chân kiền này để mà phá rối cư dân Westminster.
She's just going to continue to voice her opinions until the 3 city council, Kimberly Ho, Taido, and Carlos Manzo, stop the, continue infighting or divisive of the council, and so they continue the voicing their opinions.
Cả 3 vị nghị viên Kimberly Hồ, Tài Đỗ và Carlos Manzo cần nên hiểu rằng quý vị càng đưa ra những nghị quyết như thế này thì càng xác tín rằng quý vị là thành phần phá hoại trong thành phố và toàn đưa ra những vấn đề không có ích lợi gì cho thành phố. Chúng tôi sẽ sẵn sàng bằng lá phiếu của mình truất phế quý vị.
She's asking the 3 council that continue doing a good thing instead of disrupting or infighting, or else they will have a recall for the 3.
Hôm nay tôi phát biểu như vậy với một cái tâm trạng rất là đau buồn, và tôi nghĩ rằng tôi sẽ tiếp tục dùng nhiều phương cách truyền thông để nói với cư dân rằng hãy đừng có bỏ phiếu cho Kimberly Hồ, đừng bao giờ bỏ phiếu cho Tài Đỗ và Carlos Manzo.
She's going to continue convincing the press or announcing the press that, or to the people that not to vote for Kimberly Ho, Taido, and Carlos Manzo.
Vì chúng tôi không cần những cái người nghị viên như vậy ngồi vào hội đồng thành phố. Chúng tôi muốn Westminster phải được bình yên và ngày một phát triển. Xin cảm ơn ông thị trưởng, cảm ơn tất cả quý vị đã lắng nghe.
Time is up, caller.
The next speaker with their hand raised is
just a second. Did her last sentence get translated? We have to be fair. Did her last sentence get translated?
No, I thought her time was up, so that's why I didn't do that.
Okay, I think you need to translate that just to be fair.
Yeah, Jake, your time's not up to translate that last sentence.
So I forgot what her point is. I apologize.
All right, so next speaker.
The next speaker is Toy Vo. You may begin speaking.
Good afternoon, everyone, Mayor and City Councils. I totally agree with Roger, Amy, and Terry per Code 8314 to prohibit authority to use the resources of the city for his or her campaign, which Charlie did. And, as he's running for mayor, and his lack of knowledge, or whoever the advisor, council advisor for him. I think Charlie is not qualified to run for it when he doesn't know what he's doing. And Thiên Nguyen say Charlie, he should research. It's not like the city manager or the city attorney said, okay, then you run. But you need to know, you need to do research to make sure that you're leading the city in the right place. And, you know, I know that Van Tran is a lawyer, Nguyễn Quốc Lăng is a lawyer, and they both could not advise Charlie to do the right thing. And those groups should not be involving in the city and run the city down. Especially, you know, I went campaign and I find a lot of people complaining. I heard a lot of bad things. And Nhật Linh, she went on her channel, called Kimberly Ho name, called Taido name, called Carlos Manzo name. Stop that. Let's work together. You know, I support, I'm very sad to see the city division too. And we need to build the city to a better place, not violating law and justifying for your wrongdoing. Stop doing the wrong thing, but doing the right thing for the city. I'm not here to criticize anyone. People make mistakes. I make mistakes myself. Let's fix it. Fix it and do the right thing for the city. You know, I'm ready with my family. My children are all set. I'm willing to serve. So please do not keep doing wrong thing and justify for your own wrong action. You know, lesson learned what you did wrong and do it right from now on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. The next speaker is Camila Overbeek. She had submitted an e-comment, but she prefers to speak now during Zoom. So Camila, you may begin.
Thank you for letting me do this. I didn't think I was going to be able to make it earlier, but since you guys are running so late, I can. So Camilla Overbeek, resident of Westminster. Let me begin by saying it's absolutely ridiculous that this city and council have decided to hold a special meeting at noon on a Friday of a holiday weekend. Conducting the people's business in the middle of a workday is essentially conducting the people's business in private. You are stripping people of their right to actively participate in their government. These meetings should be held when it is convenient for the people so as to foster participation and let concerns be voiced. And miss me with the argument that e-comments are allowed. This agenda didn't even come out until nearly noon yesterday, again, when most people are at work. And furthermore, the majority of attachments weren't even attached. This council seems to work more and more like the Supreme Court shadow docket, behind the scenes, in private, and pretty much in secret. Stop conducting the people's business and the people can't participate. California Government Code 8314A states the following: it is unlawful for any elected state or local officer, including any state or local appointee, employee, or consultant, to use or permit others to use public resources for campaign activity or personal other purposes which are not authorized by law. And 8314B3 goes on to say, public resources means any property or asset owned by the state or local agency, including but not limited to land, buildings, facilities, funds, equipment, supplies, telephones, computers, vehicles, travel, and state compensated time. What isn't clear about that? That is probably the most clear and concise wording ever written by legislators. There is absolutely zero legalese. How the city attorney and city manager couldn't figure out that it means no campaigning on public property is beyond me. You knew better too. In the staff report, public demonstrations are mentioned. Let's be clear, public demonstrations are absolutely allowed and are by no means illegal, nor does the city or council have the right to restrict them. Furthermore, the city manager and the city attorney chose to blatantly call out a movement, as they did in this report, and it's abhorrent. Black Lives Matter is a movement to stop the killing of Black people at the hands of cops. You targeted a specific movement, and it's shameful. You could have left it simply as public demonstrations, but you didn't. I've come to expect this bullshit from Christian, but from you, Christine, really? Perhaps all of you would benefit from some sensitivity, diversity, and intersectionality training. I would ask that this issue be sent to the California Attorney General's office for review and not to the Orange County District Attorney, given that Todd Spitzer himself is under investigation for a very similar thing from May of 2021. In an article published in the Voice of OC regarding that issue, Katrina Foley is on record saying, in my 16 years in public office, I just always thought the rule was you can't campaign from a public building. She's not wrong. That is the rule, and it's always been the rule. The reason we cannot get ahead in this city is for this very reason. We have some who just believe they are above the law and city staff and executives that appease them. If there is any hope for the city to shape up, we need to start enforcing rules, ethics, and decorum of our elected officials. Elected officials need to be held accountable for wrongdoing. Otherwise, we're destined to continue downward. And if you need any further evidence of Councilmember Nguyen's wrongdoing, ask yourself this. If what Councilmember Nguyen did is in fact legal, why haven't all of you and all candidates done it for every election? My personal opinion is that this should bar Councilmember Nguyen from even running in this election. He clearly doesn't respect the law. I sincerely hope that this council will move forward and send this issue to the Attorney General's office for review and investigation. And honestly, Christian, you knew better. And you honestly need to start doing better. I don't know what they have on you, but stop it.
The next speaker is Dao Tran. I believe, again, this is another member who is with her that wishes to speak. You may begin. Unmute yourself and begin, please.
Hello. Kính chào thị trưởng và các nghị viên. Tôi tên là Rivo, cư dân của thành phố Westminster.
Good afternoon, Mayor and council members. Her name is Rigo. She's a resident of Westminster.
Tôi thật là chán ngán những cái chuyện mà ba nghị viên Hồ, Đỗ và Menjo đã và đang làm.
She's tired of the work that council member Kimberly Ho, Vice Mayor Manzo and Taido have done.
Tại sao họ không đưa ra những nghị trình tốt để giúp cho thành phố mà toàn là phí tiền thuế của dân vào những cái chuyện rùi bu như thế này?
Why couldn't they propose any good thing for the city, but just wasting this taxpayer?
Ông nghị viên Charlie Nguyễn đã không phạm bất cứ một cái luật gì mà theo steps report từ luật sư và bà tổng giám đốc của thành phố.
The councilman Charlie didn't violate any law as reported by the council staff report from the city.
Ông ta đã khôn ngoan và đã nói chuyện với hai nhân vật quan trọng trong thành phố và đã được sự đồng ý của hai nhân vật này.
They have discussed the issue with the two members, basically the city attorney and city manager, about this issue.
Bây giờ thì ba nghị viên Hồ, Đỗ và Menjo lại tính dùng ba cái lá phiếu của mình để kết tội ông Charlie Nguyễn.
And now three members of the council, Ho, Manzo, and Doe, trying to use their vote to charge Councilman Charlie.
Thật là bỉ ổi cho việc làm của ba nghị viên này là phá đám thành phố.
I'm not sure how to translate it, but this is she's not happy with the thing being done.
Họ đã bất chấp quyền tự do ngôn luận của ông thị trưởng trí tạ, ông nghị viên Charlie Nguyễn và những cư dân và YouTuber nào mà dám lên tiếng chống đối họ.
They disrespect the freedom of speech of the mayor, Councilman Nguyen, and any other YouTuber that spoke against them.
Ba nghị viên vô liêm sỉ này tiếp tục vi phạm the First Amendment, quyền tự do ngôn luận của bất cứ tất cả những ai không theo phe họ.
They violate the freedom of speech from whoever that's not following them.
Ông Charlie đã không phải vi phạm bất cứ luật gì vì ông ta không dùng tài sản của thành phố cũng không cản trở lưu thông đường đi nước bước của công chúng.
Councilman Charlie Nguyen didn't violate anything because he didn't use any city resources or block any passage of the city.
Vào ngày thứ Sáu, thành phố không mở cửa.
On the Friday that the city is closed.
Ngày trước, Black Lives Matter đã từng dùng tòa đô chính và họ đã từng có hàng trăm người. Sao bà Hồ không đi bịt miệng họ đi?
In the past, a group of Black Lives Matter have demonstrated in front of the City Hall, and White Councilwoman Ho didn't block them.
Bà Hồ, bà đừng tưởng rằng chúng tôi không thấy sự ghen tức của bà nha. Sự nhỏ mọn và sự yếu kém của bà đó. Chỉ vì bà đã không nghĩ ra một ý tưởng hay này khi bà tuyên bố ra chức tranh cử thị trưởng, thì bây giờ bà phải lên tiếng phá ông Charlie Nguyễn phải không?
Councilwoman Ho, that you didn't come up with this good reason to do this. Now you get jealous and you want to come up and now you're opposing the Councilman Charlie Nguyen.
Cảm ơn bà, vì chúng tôi lại có dịp thấy tận mắt và nghe tận tai về con người nhỏ mọn của bà.
Thank you, and now we know who you are.
Bà sẽ không làm được việc lớn cho ai đâu, vì con người nhỏ mọn và ích kỷ của bà chỉ lo cho bản thân của bà thôi.
You cannot do the big thing because you only do it for yourself.
Chúng tôi biết bà đi a vua với những người vô liêm sỉ như Phát Bùi, thì tương lai của bà cũng đi xuống bùn mà thôi.
You are going, doing together with Fat Boy, and in the future, you're going nowhere.
Tôi nghĩ sự nghiệp chính trị của bà đến đây là đường cùng rồi. Bà nên về giường, về nghỉ ngơi đi, mà bà tu tâm dưỡng tính, bà để đức lại cho hai thằng con trai của bà kia kìa. Con bà nó vô tội, con trai nhờ đức cha đó bà Hồ nhé.
You know, it's a personal attack. We need to stop this lady from doing personal attack to Councilwoman Kimberly Ho, talking smack about her son and all that stuff.
So that the
Thank
so that
you.
staff will
Thank you
will
very
not
much.
Hey, can we avoid any comments that are not relevant to the item on the agenda or to?
Okay, the mayor understand that, and he needs to voice his concern immediately, please.
Okay, so can you translate that, director? No? Yes.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm going to be brief. I'm not sure I catch her everything.
No,
there, but
I mean, is there a word that you can translate into Vietnamese that, no personal attack in public comment? Yes.
Yeah, Jake, I think probably what we need to just say is that she needs to keep her content, her comments related to the items on the agenda or items within the council's jurisdiction. We should avoid personal attacks that don't have any bearing on the city council as a whole or the city or things that go beyond the city's jurisdiction.
Dạ, kính thưa quý vị, là nếu quý vị có muốn phát biểu về những cái nghị trình nào ở thành phố thì nên cho những cái đó, chứ không nên có những ý kiến về xấu xa về bên, có nghĩa về đả kích về bên gia đình của các nghị viên và thị trưởng. Xin cảm ơn quý vị.
Tại vì tôi cũng không có dịp để phát biểu, hôm nay được dịp tôi mới phát biểu thôi.
Dạ, cảm ơn. Thank you.
All right, so any
Yes, so Mayor, we have another member on Zoom with their hand raised. That is Lynn Dimick. You may begin speaking. Lynn Dimick, are you there? Hello? Lynn? Hello, Lynn? I'm not sure if we may be having an audio. They may be having an audio concern. The next we'll come back to that speaker. Hopefully they'll be able to correct that. The next speaker is shown as Dao Tran. And again, this is a person that has other speakers with her at this time. Dao Tran, you may begin.
Hello.
Yes,
Kính
you may begin.
thưa thị trưởng và các nghị viên. Tôi tên
Good
là
afternoon, Mayor and Council members.
Huệ Đạt Đoàn và hiện cư ngụ tại Westminster.
My name is Hoi Dong, and I'm a resident of Westminster.
Tôi muốn hỏi các nghị viên Kimberly Hồ, Tài Đỗ và Caromenzo tại sao
Oh,
thắc
I would
mắc
like to
việc
ask. I apologize. I would like to ask the Councilwoman Kimberly Ho, Councilman Taido, and Vice Mayor Manzo.
tại sao thắc mắc việc nghị viên Charlie Chí Nguyễn tổ chức họp báo trước cửa City Hall.
Why are you questioning the press conference of Councilman Charlie Chi Nguyen?
Việc này có mất mát gì đến thành phố?
Does it cause any resources from the city?
Tại sao quý vị cứ liên tục gây rối loạn mà không đem lại ích lợi gì cho thành phố?
Why you keep stirring the pot but not bringing anything good for the city?
Buổi họp báo không gây tốn kém nào cho thành phố vì không dùng điện ga, nước hay dịch vụ của thành phố.
The press conference didn't use any city resources because it doesn't use any electricity, gas, city resources.
Thứ hai, không cản trở công việc City Hall vì ngày thứ Sáu đó là tòa đô chính đóng cửa.
It didn't block any or cause any disruption of the city business because it's on Friday, the city hall is closed.
Thứ ba, không làm phiền ai hết vì không ai bị cản trở gì hết.
Number three, it didn't bother anybody because it didn't cause or didn't block anyone.
Tòa đô chính là nơi công cộng mà mọi người dân có thể tự do đến và đi để trình bày quan điểm của mình.
The city hall is a public place that allows the residents or people to come and go and demonstrate their freedom.
Các nghị viên cũng không có nhiều hay ít quyền hạn hơn người dân.
The council member doesn't have more or less rights than the residents.
Tòa đô chính là nơi đặc biệt mà quyền tự do ngôn luận phải được tôn trọng cho tất cả mọi người, chứ không riêng gì với các nghị viên hay dân cử.
The city hall is a special place that cô nhắc lại dùm cái câu cô mới nói gì cô?
Chứ không riêng gì các
cái câu trước của cô là
câu nguyên câu hả? Tòa đô chính là nơi đặc biệt mà quyền tự do ngôn luận phải được tôn trọng cho tất cả mọi người.
The city hall is a special place that it had to respect the freedom of speech for everybody.
Chứ không riêng gì cho các nghị viên hay dân cử.
It's not only for the council member or elected officials.
Tôi mong quý vị nghị viên Kimberly Hồ, Tài Đỗ và Caromenzo hãy chấm dứt những hành động phá rối vô lý của quý vị.
She wished that the council members Kimberly Ho, Taido, and Vice Mayor Manzo stop the fighting.
và để làm hao hại tiền bạc của thành phố.
and wasting the city resources.
Xin quý vị, ba nghị viên tài độ Kim Ly Hồ và Karamanzo hãy lắng nghe những người dân của Westminster nói chuyện với mấy quý vị nhé. Nếu quý vị muốn ra ứng cử một ngôi vị nào thì quý vị phải làm việc cho người dân, không phải ngồi đó mà cứ cãi qua cãi lại, moi móc những chuyện này chuyện kia. Cảm ơn.
I'm asking the three council members, Kimberly Ho, Taido, and Carlos Manzo, to continue working for the city. Thank you.
Well, I like to add that she also threatened, all of us have to be careful, not to argue among ourselves, especially when we run for public office too.
All right, next speaker.
We're going to try one more time with Lynn Dimick, and that would be the last person with their hands up. Lynn Dimick, you may begin speaking. Please unmute yourself.
Lucy?
Yes.
Lucy, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear
thank
you.
you.
Please go ahead. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Lynn Dimick. I'm a Westminster resident. My family and I moved here 34 years ago. One of the things that drew us to the city was the passion, the caring, and the small town feel. It's a great pleasure to have people around me that care the way that the citizens here do. And I think that extends to the city council as well. It really pains me to see some of the pain and the vitriol that's being shared. As we approach this 4th of July weekend, I'm drawn back to the founding of this great country. And one of the things that we're taught is that one of the issues that led to the rebellion and our separation from England was the concept of taxation without representation. And I submit to you that any lack of representation or suppression of representation is equally as horrible today as it was then. And to that end, I am dismayed that we have so many people that are opposed to the efforts that were made to try and put the sales tax initiative back on the ballot. That was not an effort to say we are going to pay sales tax. That was an effort to give us representation on how we want our city, which is our money, being managed and run and financed. Going back to the founding of this country, we found that the informal rules that everybody was trying to live by within their small communities were not effective. So some 11 years later, they wrote a constitution. And within that constitution, it guaranteed the protection of free speech. Now, this comes with responsibilities, and it comes with laws and consequences, and we can't escape either one. Briefly, I'd like to say that I would like to congratulate Adolfo Ozieta, and I apologize if I pronounce his name wrong, for his appointment to the assistant city manager this last month. One of the things I really appreciated was there was a picture posted of him in front of City Hall with the City Hall name clearly visible. Now, to me, this demonstrated that this was a support of Adolfo for that new job. And it was a very strong vote of support from the city council. When I see a picture of Charlie doing the same thing, the message that I receive is that someone in authority is not only condoning, but supporting this effort. Now, I've raised 5 children in this city, and one of the things as a father and a mother that my wife and I did was we created rules for them, rules of conduct. Some of those rules were for their safety. Some of them were for the appearance sake. We don't do things like throw trash in our yard because it gives people the wrong impression. And the problem that I have with the way that that picture was taken and the press conference being held there was not that it interfered with city business or hindered anybody's access. It's the fact that it gives the appearance that this is an officially sanctioned move by the city or the council. Charlie is running for election as mayor as a private citizen and should therefore be on a level playing field with others. If I were to try and run for mayor, and believe me, I have no desire to after see what you guys go through on these calls, I would be appalled if you gave me permission to have that same access. The final thing that I would like to address, and I would urge all of the council members to consider this, is that we need to find a way to unify this city. Right now, we have a city that is deeply divided, and it's divided deeply in my mind upon language barriers. When I see some of the things that are being translated, mistranslated, or whatever, for comments that are being made in interviews that are not accessible to the common English speaker, it concerns me. And it concerns me because, number one, I feel disenfranchised, and number two, I think there's a lot of disinformation going on out there. When I hear people praising freedom of speech and then condemning taxation without representation, I see a problem there, and I see a disconnect, and I see that being driven by those interviews and that media. And it has to stop. Thank you.
Thank you. We have another speaker, Dao Tran, and I believe again this is it shows up as Dao Tran, but it's someone that is there wanting to speak as well. You may begin.
Hello.
Go ahead, please.
May I speak Vietnamese language? Okay. Tôi tên là Thị Nguyễn, cư dân ở thành phố Westminster gần 10 năm.
My name is T. Nguyen. I'm a resident of Westminster almost 10 years.
Tôi là một nhà giáo dục và một nhà nghiên cứu khoa học.
I'm an educator and also a researcher.
Hơn 30 năm.
More than 30 years.
Tôi cũng là chủ tịch một trường đại học ở Hoa Kỳ.
I'm also the president of one of their university or college in the U.S.
Lần đầu tiên tôi được tham dự vào buổi tuyên bố tranh cử của nghị viên Charlie Nguyễn Mạnh Trí.
It's the first time I got involved. I'm involved in the press conference of the councilman Charlie Nguyen.
Điều đầu tiên mà tôi thấy rất là lo lắng bởi vì tôi thấy ông nghị viên thực hiện việc tranh cử mà tự ông ấy đã khuynh vác những cái banner và ông ấy tự cột dây lấy những cái banner đó.
I'm worried that I've seen Councilman Charlie Nguyen have done carrying his own banner and other things for the press conference.
Tôi không thấy một người nào ở trong cái staff của thành phố Westminster để hỗ trợ ông ta.
I didn't see any city staff that's supporting him.
Đó là lý do tại sao tôi phụ ông ta để cột các cái banner đó. Mặc dù trời rất là nắng.
That's the reason why I helped him to tie the banners, even though the weather was very hot.
Tôi thấy rằng cái không gian của City Hall rất là tuyệt vời, nhưng rất tiếc hôm đó thì ông ta thực hiện buổi tranh cử, tuyên bố tranh cử ở ngoài nắng rất thật là nắng.
I saw that the space of the City Hall is wonderful, but he was doing his press conference in the sun on that day.
Vậy tôi xin hỏi một câu thứ nhất là một trong 5 nghị viên của thành phố Westminster tuyên bố tranh cử thì các thành viên còn lại đã giúp gì với nhau, cho nhau, mặc dù tất cả các nghị viên ấy khi tranh cử thì nói với người dân rằng chúng tôi rất đoàn kết và chúng tôi phục vụ cho người dân hết lòng.
My first question is, what other council members will do for the one who doing a press conference to announce his candidacy, even though you're saying that you're united and you will serve the residents?
Tôi nghĩ rằng cái vấn đề cao cả nhất của các chính trị gia, đặc biệt là các nghị viên của thành phố, là tính cách leadership, tính cách lãnh đạo cao cả.
He believed that the elected official or councilman should have the leadership skill.
Đó là lý do tại sao cư dân trong thành phố Westminster, nhiều nhà khoa học, nhà giáo dục, họ ủng hộ các chính trị gia.
That's the reason why the residents, the educator, the science researcher that's supporting the elected officials.
Sự hiến dân là yếu tố cần và đủ của các leadership cao cả như thành phố Westminster.
The dedication is that's required for the elected official, especially the council member for the city of Westminster.
Sự thành công của các leadership không phải là một manager mà làm sao thu phục tất cả nhân tài trong công chúng của đồng bào trong thành phố Westminster.
Your success, I hope I understand you correctly, but hopefully your leadership and your success will attract other people to provide services for the residents of Westminster.
Vì yếu tố leadership của quý vị đã thể hiện bằng cái cuộc họp hôm nay, do đó là vấn đề tôi cần tham dự buổi nói chuyện hôm nay.
Because of your leadership, so about this meeting, so that's why I'm participating in this meeting.
Tôi nhắc nhở quý vị rằng nếu quý vị không gương mẫu mực trong trở thành lãnh đạo thì nhất định quý vị sẽ không có đồng bào, không có người dân ở trong thành phố Westminster.
I just want to remind you that if you're not righteous leader, then you will not have the residents or supporter for you.
Tôi muốn nhìn thấy tất cả 5 nghị viên mẫu mực trở thành những nhà lãnh đạo cao cả, sẵn sàng hiến dâng cuộc đời mình cho công chúng.
I want all 5 councilmen that's willing to serve the residents and the resident and everybody else and ready to serve.
Tôi cam kết rằng trường đại học của chúng tôi cũng sẵn sàng hỗ trợ cho những sinh viên nối gót theo quý vị.
I will promise that the college or the university will encourage the students will continue your career or your path.
Đó là lý do tôi khuyên rằng cuộc họp hôm nay nên chấm dứt sớm và đừng bao giờ đánh mất thời gian của tất cả mọi người.
So that's the reason why I want to suggest that the meeting today will end early and not wasting the time of everybody else.
Số điện thoại của tôi là 714 499 7622. Nếu nghị viên nào cần hỏi tham khảo về khả năng leadership, tôi sẵn lòng chia sẻ bằng ngôn ngữ tiếng Anh hay một vài ngôn ngữ khác trực tiếp.
My phone number is 714-499-7622 if any council member would like to discuss about the leadership skill, and I'm willing to share. And thank you. In any language, I apologize. I'm willing to share in English or any other language, in other language. Thank you.
If there's anyone else wishing to speak that has not done so, please raise your hand now. Seeing none, Mayor, that concludes the oral communications portion. There are no additional hand risen. I do want to add that we originally had 2 items submitted via e-comment. One was from Camilla Overbeek, who spoke, so I will not be reading her item. The other one is from Lan Bowie, and his e-comment reads as follows, and it's related to number 4 on the agenda. It says, Dear City Manager Cordon, which city council members place this frivolous item on the city council meeting agenda? Is this circus still on with the gang of 3, otherwise known as Kimberly Ho, Ty Doe, and Carlos Manzo? This agenda item sure smells like what these 3 would do. This city has so many issues to deal with in light of rising gas and product prices. Westminster has many challenging issues to deal with, and the council is wasting time and energy talking about limiting free speech against political opponents. I thought the residents of Westminster have made it clear to these 3 on the council that if they have a majority, then try to do something productive and positive for the city instead of picking fights and dishing out paybacks against their political enemies. Like many Westminster residents, I'm sick and tired of your clown show, Ms. Ho, Mr. Doe, and Mr. Manzo. The 3 of you are behaving like spoiled children, throwing sand in your sandbox when you don't get your way. The dangerous result in all of this is that you are abusing taxpayers' money to satisfy your own hatred and self-inflating egos. People can easily see through your scheme and putting these issues up just so that you can harass Charlie Nguyen and Tree Top. This is old news, and you 3 need to grow up. There is nothing here if you understand and respect free speech and the Constitution. When you get in the gutter to play politics, you also smell like the gutter. You are driving the city to the ground, and you don't seem to care. Kimberly Ho, Ty Doe, and Carlos Manzo, keep up your games and pettiness. Westminster voters are keeping an eye on you. Thank you for listening, Lan Bowie, Westminster resident. Mayor, that concludes the oral communication portion. Just a moment, Mayor. Let's make sure that you are unmuted. There you go.
Right.
Yeah, there you go.
So, okay, so next item, declaration of result of special election held on June 7, 2022, and adopt various election resolutions to notice and call for general municipal election on November 8, 2022.
Move to approve. Mayor, can we take the first item separately, just because it pertains to the June 7th election, and then the others pertain to the November 8th? So vote on item A first, and then B, C, and D together.
All right, so is there a motion to approve item A first?
Say move to approve.
Second it.
All right, we have the motion and the second to approve item A as recommended.
Thank you. And that motion was made by Councilmember Doe, seconded by Vice Mayor Manzo, and that is to adopt a resolution entitled a resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of Westminster, reciting the fact of the special municipal election held on Tuesday, June 7, 2022, declaring the results and such other matters as provided by law. Councilmember Doe,
Yes.
Councilmember Ho,
Yes.
Councilmember Nguyen,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Manzo,
Yes.
and Mayor Ta.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries 5-0,
All
Mayor.
right, so City Attorney, any issue with B, C, and D?
No, those could be taken together.
We should probably just clarify the map real quick.
Okay, please.
Get with the map.
So just for clarification, the attachment, there was the map, which was attachment number 6 for the adopted 4-district map. The one that was included in the packet had the dates reversed. So District 1 and 4 are actually for this upcoming election, and the District 2 and 3 are for elections in 2024.
All right, so the map is number 42 map, right? That the city council approved like several months ago. Am I correct? Okay.
Correct.
to the map in lieu 4 district.
So with those changes, is there a motion to approve resolution B, C, and D?
Motion to approve.
Do I hear that?
All right, so we have the motion and second to approve B, C, and D of this item.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Doe,
Yes.
Councilmember Ho,
Yes.
Councilmember Nguyen,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Monzo,
Yes.
Mayor Ta.
Yes.
Motion carries, and that is to adopt item B, C, and D, and that includes a resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of Westminster, California, calling for the holding of a general municipal election to be held on Tuesday, November 8, 2022, for the election of certain officers as required by the provisions of the laws of the state of California relating to general law cities. Also adopt a resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of Westminster, California, requesting the Board of Supervisors of the County of Orange to consolidate general municipal election to be held on Tuesday, November 8, 2022, with the statewide general election to be held on the date pursuant to California Elections Code, Section 10403, and to adopt a resolution entitled, "A Resolution of the Mayor and City Council of the City of Westminster, California, adopting regulations for candidates for elective office pertaining to candidate statements submitted to the voters at a general municipal election to be held on Tuesday, November 8, 2022. That concludes the reading of the titles, Mayor. And the motion will carry 5-0. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. On the next item, resolution approving a second amendment to the memorandum of understanding between the city and Westminster Municipal Employee Association, WMEA, for the period of July 1st, 2022 and including June 30th, 2023.
Move to approve.
Second.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and second to approve this item.
Thank you, Mayor. And that motion was moved by Councilmember Doe, seconded by Vice Mayor Monzo. And that is to approve a resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of Westminster approving a second amendment to the memorandum of understanding, the MOU, for Westminster Municipal Employee Associations, WMEA, employees for the period of July 1st, 2020 through and including June 30, 2023. Councilmember Doe?
Yes.
Councilmember Ho?
Yes.
Councilmember Nguyen?
Yes.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Monzo?
Yes.
Mayor Ta?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries 5-0, Mayor.
Next item, circumstance relate to free speech and press conference held June 24, 2022.
I think I'll take this. I'll take the lead on this. Just a couple statements before I go into this, because I've got kind of a more lengthy explanation. I think it's really warranted in this particular case, so everyone understands. First of all, I have to express from on a personal side that I think a lot of people who don't know me and haven't spoken to me or understand my intent. My goal is always to try and take a neutral position to give the best advice to the city council, what's in accordance with the law. And that's what I'm trying to do. I can't claim that I'm perfect. But the reality is I grew up in the area. I love this city. I'm working very hard to make this city a better and productive place that moves forward in a positive way. That has been demonstrated through the ethics policy, which I drafted, policies on council interaction with city employees. We've got a much more positive environment now. These are things that I advocated for and drafted and pushed forward to in order to give us the environment. I've only been in place for a year and a half. Please, you don't understand all the things I'm seeking to do to move this city forward behind the scenes, encouraging in a positive way in accordance with my role, which is not to be a policymaker, but an advisor, and to give the best advice that I can. With that context, let me try to explain to everyone. I really do respect your right to speak. On whatever side of the aisle you come from, it doesn't matter. That's not relevant. You have a right to speak. And it is a foundational element our Constitution. The area of First Amendment litigation is vast and very nuanced and very complex at the Supreme Court level. And you need to understand that. The U.S. Supreme Court First Amendment right, in the Constitution supersedes state statutes. That's really important, and that will come into play a little bit later on. If you have a First Amendment right to do something, you cannot draft laws except in very limited situations. So what's important to understand here is that there's different kinds of forums. First of all, there's areas that are not public forums whatsoever. That would include in the public works yard, or the area inside City Hall, not the lobby where people are working, or inside the police building that is not the lobby. There are little First Amendment rights in these areas. There's limited public forums. These are areas that are designated for public speech, but on a limited basis, such as the council chamber. So you have a right to speak, but it's only when there's a council meeting, when there's a public meeting that's posted for that site, and only during that time frame that meeting is being held, and only for 5 minutes, and only concerning items that are on the agenda or within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council. That is a limited public forum. Then there are areas which are public forums. And areas such as parks and sidewalks by court rule are traditional public forums. These are areas that by history and just by court acknowledgement, there is a much greater right of the public to speak. And it's very difficult for the government, whether federal or local, to restrict speech on in those areas. It is what we call a strict scrutiny standard. Okay, there are reasonable time, place, and manner rules that you can apply, but they have to be completely content neutral. You have to, first of all, look at this very high, strict scrutiny standard. There might be situations where, acts of violence and things of that nature can be prohibited. But you have to examine that. Is the law that you're passing overly burdensome? Is it the least restrictive means? Could there be a way that we could do the same thing in a less restrictive way in public forums? So parks and the sidewalks. Now the entire Civic Center is zoned as a park. It's used as such. Even today, there's an event that's going on right outside the windows where I'm at. We frequently have classes and other things going on in there. That is clearly a park area. City Hall isn't necessarily a park, but so what I want you to understand here is I'm trying to apply what the law is, despite what people think on one side or the other. I'm just trying to give the facts. There's no intent to grant any special privilege here. So what you have to look at and what is relevant here is whether or not this area is an area that has been used for free speech. And if it has a tradition of such, then it is considered a public forum. So when this issue came up on a Wednesday night, Councilman Nguyen reached out to me. I spoke to him. He called me back. I added the city manager to the call, and we had a collective conversation. And the question that was being asked is, can I have a permit? It wasn't that. It was, can I hold this, to announce my candidacy in front of City Hall? And so that question was asked. It wasn't a relatively long conversation, but the first thing that came to my mind is, okay, is there a permit requirement here? And I said, how big is this event? Because I know we have a code governing special events permits. And we should probably, at some point here, have the community services director speak to that. But generally speaking, in the city, there's a code, and I could read the language in it, but it doesn't apply in this situation. What was stated was that, how big is this event going to be? Is it going to require any city services? Is this speech that you're giving going to require anything from the city? I was assured that it wouldn't, and that it was 15 to 20 people. And what our code says is, well, it gives a very broad definition of what's a special event. Well, it's not feasible to define precisely which activities are intended to be treated as special events. The intent of this chapter is to regulate those activities which are open to the public, are likely to attract large numbers of attendees and are likely to require the provision of public services such as police, fire, public works, anything like that. Or use the public rights of way in some way, like a parade or something. Special events are those activities which have the potential to constitute a threat to the public health, safety, and welfare, and thus create potential exposure to liability to the city. So with all that, and we can get the community services director to speak to it, traditionally, what we've done, as I understand it in talking with her, is that that department has, when it's been more than 100 people, then you start talking about a special events permit. So when we're told 15 to 20, this is treated similar to anybody else asking. Now, I am going to speak to a government code 8314 and in a second. But the key thing here is that when it's a public forum, it's a strict scrutiny standard, and I cannot focus on what the speaker is saying. I have to treat someone I agree with the same as somebody I disagree with. You cannot look at what they're saying. It has to be a reasonable time, place, and manner restriction. So you can limit the size of a sign. You can limit the time that people can do these things. We close parks at nighttime. And so people aren't going to be allowed to maybe use that area if we've closed the park during that time. That's reasonable. But during normal hours, and someone wants to walk around with a sign in a park, they're allowed to do so. So it's a very high standard, and I don't focus on what's on the sign. I focus on what's happening here. Is it too restrictive? So a sign of a certain size would be okay, but a sign that's the size of a building may not be okay. So in this particular case, when we were asked, we focused first on, is there a special event? It was determined it did not appear to fall within that category. And second of all, we then, are there any special rules that the city's council has adopted that are applicable to the front of this building? And I was consulting the city manager on that. She was not aware of any. That we had ever adopted reasonable time, place, and manner rules on that. And then we discussed the fact that numerous press conferences had occurred out there. And I apologize to one of the speakers who indicated, that it sounded like we were targeting one group. That wasn't the intent. It was merely to point out that there were certain protests and such that occurred. It's just to focus on the fact that there are very specific events that did occur. There were events out there when recall petitions were submitted to the city. I've seen press conferences by individuals that are not public officials out there, and numerous other events, both by the city and by others. So it seemed clear that this was a public forum. So the response that both I and the city manager had is that, well, we don't see any reason why you can't hold it. We did not ever analyze where things were going to be located, what things would be brought, what signs would be posted. The issue was, can I come there and give a speech to announce a candidacy? So the response then was to try to say, well, we don't see anything against it. But if you're going to do it, we are very concerned about certain things, and you must be in compliance with these things. And that does go to the very issue of 8314 that people have raised. So 4 things were said at the time. If you're going to use it, make sure that if it becomes a large event, then you may need to get a special events permit. 2, don't use any public resources whatsoever, not electricity, not anything owned by the city or controlled by the city. 3, don't block any sidewalks, and don't block the entrance to the building. These things were repeated a number of times to make sure that you were situated in a way that it wasn't going to be blocking the access. It was pointed out that it was going to be on a Friday when City Hall was closed. That was mentioned. And finally, the city manager in particular brought up the fact that make sure you don't take any photos that include the city seal or city logo. And we talked about the fact that we don't want any images to make it look like the city is somehow endorsing what the speech is. So with that kind of concluded the conversation. And then that was Wednesday night. It was Thursday, and then the event occurred on Friday. And afterwards, we then saw photos and such, and that people were upset about what occurred. Let me speak just briefly to the issue of Government Code Section 8314. And I fully understand everybody's consternation with the fact that it seems very clear. And I agree with you. It does have language in it that talks about not using public resources, which include land, buildings, or facilities. Okay, but if we look at the very first line of this, it is unlawful for any elected state or local officer, including any state or local appointee or employee or consultant, to use, now that term is defined, what does it mean to use or to permit others to use public resources for campaign activity or personal or other purposes. And the very last part says, which are not authorized by law. That's a very key phrase, not authorized by law, because the Constitution allows this activity if it's a public forum. So this statute would not apply if the Constitution says that speech is allowed in this area. But regardless of that, the rest of the statute, when it talks about using, it's talking about gaining some financial advantage to the individual at issue. Use is defined to mean a use of public resources, which is substantial enough, it's got to be substantial enough to result in a gain or advantage to the user or a loss to the state or the city for which a monetary value may be estimated. So the question right there would be, is there a monetary value for that right to use it? And really the question here is, again, not what the speaker is saying. We can't focus on what the speaker is saying. If somebody else got up there and did the same thing, could we charge them for it? Is there a monetary value for it? I'm not trying to advocate. What I'm trying to do is apply the law. And if it's a public forum, and I have spoken to a number of other attorneys on this, and they've all agreed that based on the history, it would appear to be a public forum. Now, again, so that is the reason why the intent of this statute here is to do, and I want to explain further there, that the intent of this statute is, and this was explained to the council member, is that you don't want to have anything that a public official has access to, because a public official has access to potentially employees, to buildings, to land, to paper and printers and envelopes and things of that nature, telephones, that the public doesn't have access to. And what the code is trying to get to is that it would be wrong for a public official to be able to take any access that others are not entitled to and then use it for a personal or a campaign purpose. And that makes perfect sense. They should not be allowed to do that. On the other hand, if we're talking about an area to which the public has the same access and the same right, then the different analysis applies. Again, if somebody came up there and wanted to do the exact same thing, and this question hasn't been asked, and that's maybe why we're having this discussion today. But if somebody said, I want to go give a speech in a press conference out there, as has occurred, we had a pretty well-known attorney at one point, as my understanding, I've heard that came and did a press conference when there was a lawsuit against the city. Could we force them to move? Could we get the police out there and say, hey, you got to get off these steps? The reality is I think that would be very difficult to do. And that's the question we have to ask. Are they blocking access to the building? Yes, we can make them move if that's the case. Are they, using a logo in an improper way? And that's come up in the past. These things were mentioned, and then the event occurred in the way it did. And I think it's a fair thing for the council to have a discussion about whether or not they think, or the public thinks, that was it carried out in accordance with those rules and restrictions. I think that's a fair discussion. But the intent here was to examine the law. Were there rules that applied to this area? It was determined there were not. That this was determined to be a public forum based on prior usage, and then reasonable restrictions were given on how that area might be used. So again, I think there's two things that could potentially be talked about here. One is do you think that there was not a following of those rules that were given by the city manager and myself? And second of all, should we discuss whether or not rules, reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions that don't talk about who's doing the speaking, should those be adopted in this situation? So I hope with that explanation, we can have a productive conversation, again, with the goal that we can move forward as a city. And Mayor, it might be helpful to hear from the Community Services Director as far as how we've traditionally applied that special events permit.
All right. Okay.
Good afternoon, Council. Christian said it pretty accurately. For a special event permit, that large number is usually triggered at 100 attendees. So if any event in a public place, that would be, if they tell us there's 150 plus, over 100, it would trigger that process. And that is an application process that has to start 60 days in advance. And then that, because public property goes to council for approval. So then it would come to you for approval.
And so, City Attorney, really appreciate you explain clearly in the staff report and also verbally. I think that everything you said, I think.
Can I add one thing?
All right.
Because I think it's relevant. In that statute where it talks about not using land or buildings for an advantage, what that's really getting at is not that because if you think about it, would the city be within rights if somebody, a council member, went out into the middle of the park and started saying anything? Could we stop them from doing that? That doesn't really make sense, does it? Because it's an area that's applicable to everybody. So what it's talking about is that the council member may have access to a community room or may have access to the public works yard. Could they hold an event there that might be for their personal use? No, they couldn't, because they're not allowed to use their special access for purposes of private gain. That's what that's targeted at. It's not talking about public areas that are accessible by everyone when everybody's on the same footing.
All right, I think you already explained well, and in your staff report, you list all the requirements, and Councilman Nguyen, he follow all the requirements that you list in the staff report. And this item completely a free speech. So I mean, like council member has the same right as anyone else. So I don't see any issue with Councilman Nguyen press conference. Yeah.
I guess I'll go first since
All right.
I don't appear, nobody else appears to be. First, I agree with some of the callers when they were speaking about council infighting. I do agree with them. It's not good for the community. It's not good for the council. It's not productive. We have a lot of issues here in the city, as we all know. But at the same time, when there's something that's if something were to come up that's not correct, that's wrong, just because you don't want to cause any waves and cause any infighting, you should stay silent. I think it's our council's responsibility because our interests are, we're here to protect the community and speak for the community. So in that spirit, I mean, I would expect council to speak up. Just because you don't want to have any infighting doesn't mean you should stay silent. So I agree with them, but we also have to, like I said, we're speaking for the community. And so we got to do that. Just listening to City Attorney, what you're saying, I think, in my view, when the things you're speaking about, free speech, it seems that that's not what we're speaking about. What we're speaking about, what the community is concerned about, is campaign activity. They seem to be conflating some of the things that you're mentioned with a private resident, private person, making a speech about, and then the two issues you spoke about on your staff report, those are private citizens maybe come to speak about issues in the community or issues in the nation, that they're trying to inform the public, general public information. But what we're talking about is elected officials and campaign activity. That's what's in question here. Not the examples that you outlined as far as free speech and public information. So I think you're conflating those two there. So I don't agree with those examples you said. And like I said, I don't have, this is not anything personal with Councilmember Nguyen. I don't have any, Councilmember Nguyen and I maybe not see eye to eye on certain things, but I definitely don't have any personal agenda with anybody. So my concern is what was done, was it right? Was it legal? And when I think just the general public and when you look at it, it wasn't right. Does everybody in City Hall, city manager, city attorney, all city staff, are they in support of a particular council member running for a public office? Because that's what it looks like when you have a big banner of that size underneath City Hall. And if you look at the council interaction policy, it clearly states there's a section when it speaks of that. It should not display banners. And I think that's the spirit that part of the policy is talking about, that elected officials should not seek endorsement or support for their political campaign. But when you have a sign that size right in front of City Hall, right underneath the City Hall sign, that's what it's saying. That's what the appearance, that is what the perception to the community looks like when we have a sign that size. When you spoke about a special event, I heard you say that a special event could be an event that's likely to attract a large audience. I think you mentioned that. So if somebody who's having a press conference, I would think just common sense would dictate that event like that is likely to attract a large audience. It wasn't just a quick speech. It was over an hour and a half. It had multiple speakers. It had a podium. You have media. Media was there. There was live feed. So I think that would suggest that it's likely to attract a large audience. I mean, if you have media, live video, I would think it would. To the common person, I think that's common sense that it would attract large media, large presence. And also, what about amplified sound? Does amplified sound, is that part of what dictates a special event? Can Vanessa or Christian, do you answer that? I mean, if you have media, you have amplified sound, you have a podium, you have multiple speakers, I would say that clearly would say that's a special event.
Vanessa, can you address that?
Yes.
How do we traditionally handle that? Because we need to be consistent.
For amplified sound
Yes.
specifically, we do allow use of amplified sound as long as it's limited to something personal, like something you would own in your home, that you would take into the backyard or to the park for a picnic. That is permissible and would not trigger a special event permit per se. We typically go by what an applicant puts on the application of the number of attendees. So if they tell us what they're anticipating, they're expecting, that's what we go by. If they're anticipating under 100 using a personal sound system that they're bringing, it would not trigger a special event permit.
Okay, thank you.
And there are those other instances where people have 100 people in a park with a picnic that would not trigger a special event permit.
So again, I think that some of the things that the city attorney was saying, I think the question here is campaign activity. That's not, in no way, shape, or form are we, I think, trying to hinder Councilmember Wynn's or anybody's free speech. The question here is campaign activity on public land. And that here is clearly to anybody that seems that's exactly what happened. And so you're saying that by the spirit of the law that we're speaking about, that is clearly it's admissible to hold a campaign rally right on the steps of City Hall. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm not. And I think that might be something worth at least looking into. I think, as I said, the question was, does a special events permit apply? And then in this case, we were examining, again, we're not looking at the type of speech that's being said. Were there any special rules that have been adopted for City Hall? That was part of the analysis. So
I don't understand.
Let me just say one thing, and that is that without looking at it to see what other people have done on this subject, it's potentially problematic because political speech, by definition, is highly protected because it's the basis of our democracy. To be able to have a representative that can get up on the steps of the Capitol or wherever they go to say, I think this is terrible, or I'm very much in favor of this, or whatever it might be. And we see that on the news nightly. Political speech is the basis of our democracy. So I get it, campaigning, that maybe there's a way to do that. I think that's worth examining, but we would need to have adopted some prohibition on that.
The example you just said it's not even the same. You're talking about a political speech as far as saying something that's benefiting the community. This is not a political speech that's benefiting the community. This is a political speech for the purpose of solely benefiting for running for office, support for running for office. This is not a political speech as far as what you just mentioned, that you don't agree, there's something wrong going on in the community, and you're making a political speech to inform the community whether from wrong things or bad things happening in the city. This is a political speech in support of one person's candidacy for public office. It's a big difference.
Yes. And what I'm saying is that it's anytime a politician speaks, it's going to be, and we run into this problem a lot. A lot of times politicians are saying stuff and people will say, well, that's, they're campaigning out there. They're just doing that because they want to get their name out there. It's the political speech is a lot. So trying to parse between, okay, am I asking for donations in this situation versus someone coming out there and saying, vote for me because I'm going to change Washington. Can you see why that kind of language might be something that's important to be able to say, I need to change the system. So it's very hard to parse that. Again, we can look at whether or not there's ways that we can restrict that. Right now, we don't have any guidelines that prohibit it. That was part of the issue here. So we can definitely look at that.
So the things that, okay, looking at it the next day, the day after, in your legal expertise, do you see an issue with what anything that Councilmember Wynn brought or did as far as the podium, amplified sound, the sign, the banner, the proximity of the banner in the building, where in the right of way, wherever it was? Do you see an issue with what happened? Not talking about what he asked, what was legal the day on Wednesday, but what happened on that Friday.
Right, because those things weren't discussed with us ahead in advance. I will say that when I spoke to him on Saturday after the event arose, and I'll just relay what I expressed, and I think Christine as well, the city manager, I think we were both taken back by the location as close to the building, by the sign being so close to the building. I was concerned that it might have been attached to the building. I took a close look at the picture. It appeared that it wasn't, that it was on independent structure. Putting the podium there seems very substantial. Again, these are things that if I had to litigate it, then we'd find out what a court would say about, can you put a podium there for 1 hour? When City Hall is closed on a Friday, in this particular location, was access being blocked? These are questions for a court. These were not questions that were asked on Wednesday. So all I'm saying is the council member did what he did, and I was concerned on Saturday about the podium. I was concerned about the sign. I was concerned his proximity to the building and making sure that we weren't somehow giving the impression that this was city speech. And these were expressed to him, and I mentioned that these are issues that are likely going to come up when this gets discussed by the council.
I want to point out something else. Me not being, understanding Vietnamese, and also hearing some concerns from the residents as far as what visually was there with the banner and where it was located. But I'm not saying that Councilmember Nguyen did say anything like what the concerns are that I heard. But what I'm saying is that the non-Vietnamese speaking community don't know because they don't understand Vietnamese. The appearance with the banner there under the City Hall is the City Hall, everybody at City Hall supporting Councilmember Nguyen for mayor. And is there anything said? Do we know if anything was said that during that, all those speakers that there was Councilmember, the staff was supporting Councilmember Nguyen? We don't know because the non-Vietnamese speaking community doesn't understand. So that's also problematic as well. Those are the concerns that I heard in the community that I got calls on. Is that something like that being said? Who knows? I don't know. I'm not saying that it was, but those are the concerns that I heard in the community. So I see there's a lot of issues that with this, and I mean, I just looking at what 8314 and just reading it, and to me it seems that we need to have an independent eyes on this and give an independent assessment of this. What happened here was legal. Was the correct legal advice given? I want to say this. I'm really disappointed that I think the city attorney and it sounds like city manager probably should have looked at this a little bit longer and probably not have been so quick to give him an answer that night. Maybe should have taken this and thought this through maybe the next day and then came back with an answer, but not so quick that 11:30, 12 at midnight on Wednesday. I think maybe a little bit more thought should have been given to this question from Councilmember Nguyen. That's all I got.
May I speak?
All right.
First, I want to say I agree with Vice Mayor Manzo. Most of what he stated, and I don't want to repeat some of the things that people already said. I want to add to that. Okay, so contrary to what Chi Charlie supporters stated earlier, that I did not think of doing something like this, and because Chi Charlie was so smart that he thought of it. No, that is wrong. Number one is that, okay, just for the record, I did not call for the special meeting today. I agreed once asked. I was fine with coming today, but I was not the one to initiate. Number two is that I would never even think about using our public building this way. The use of the front of City Hall and the proximity of where he placed his podium and his speakers, and then where he spoke from, really makes it look like it's a City Hall event. Just looking in, and City Hall endorsement, like a City Hall endorsed Chi Charlie for mayor. I too have received many phone calls from very knowledgeable people, not people just called in to rant, as we know that those are, I'm talking about very knowledgeable people, savvy people from our community who express concerns about the violation of Code Section 8314. I spent the time, they forward that to me, I spent the time to read over the codes and the comments people sent in. So I'm not going to go into that because we already talked and that was already, we shed light onto that. But I wanted to say, I want to quote to you from an article in the Institute of Local Government titled Campaigning for Re-Election, Legal and Ethical Red Flags, quote unquote. In a democracy, the means by which one achieves goals matters as much or even more than the goal itself. Such means speak to the character of those who would serve in public office. Does the means justify the end? A desired, that was end quote. A desired result in this case, winning an election, that's Chi Charlie's desired result, is so good and so important that any method, even a morally bad one, you would use to achieve it. I mean, basically, we know that this is an important question. That was an important question Chi Charlie had posed to Christian and Christine. We'll talk about Christine and Christian in a little bit. I think that any amount of policies will not prevent something like this from happening because, number one, we don't need more policies. There are state laws already out there, but the person chose to ignore it. What it boils down to is ethics. Unethical behavior or ways to win a campaign should not be rewarded, but rather it should be made known that this council and its citizens will not tolerate that. Unfair political practices. Banners, banners on city fences were not allowed, and I'm sure you know that, Christian. Let alone having a banner stretch across the facade or the face of City Hall. The banner that is the picture that is now probably being circulated all over the world. The banner is all over that facade, and just shocking to see that anybody would approve that. So when asked, was that approved? Was the banner approved also? No, the banner was not approved, nor was it made known. So the bully tactics being used over the years to persuade, to put pressure on staff to a point where staff has PTSD. I am surprised and appalled the city attorney and city manager, of all people, cave into the bully and the pressure. When I applied for an event at the park, well, yeah, I know people talked about that, and the ordeal that I had to go through, okay, is compared to this event. I had to fill out a form and describe what I wanted to apply for in writing and not just got a casual conversation like Chief Charlie did in passing after a city hall meeting and partly on the phone. So it wasn't, that was a conversation, as Chief Charlie said, was at city hall after a meeting, and then he forgot something and then he called back and talked about it some more. It's quite appalling to me to hear that something as important as this was approved casually, just on a casual basis. I would expect that, first of all, I would ask that to be submitted in writing, okay? To prevent any misunderstanding, that would be a pretty good, I mean, a darn good practice. It's just a good practice. So no one needs to have a policy for that, especially when this is Christian and city manager, you know. You're at a level where I would expect you to know that. So to prevent misunderstanding, and also you could use as proof as proof as to what you approved, because there are a lot of things there that you said you did not approve, nor was it even brought up. How would we know that? Nothing was in writing. So did he draw a picture for you and gave you the dimensions of the banner and the placement of the banner? And, you know, in terms of the logo, you know, if you know, when you talk about a logo, okay, because I mean, I've gotten so many trademarks and logos and in my entire business life, that for 32 years, that, you know, the letter style, the word style, the font style of the word City Hall is a logo. So what logo were you expecting? The city of Westminster, that logo like the one right now on the screen right now? Well, the word logo, the word City Hall is a logo. So is there a gray area regarding free speech zone, campaign activity, or is it not a campaign activity? Or is it the perception might be that it is a speech, or someone is representing the 5 city council people to give a speech today. And is it for personal gain or is it not for personal gain? That all of us gain and our city gain and our constituents gain? It's not that simple. It's not a cut and dry decision. So the least you can do is to have a formal request. Email request doesn't have to be formal. If you don't have a form like I had to go through to fill out and to describe, and even have to describe to say what kind of amplified sound do I have or I'm going to have and all that. I had to describe all that. And then I ended up having to move my venue to a different location. And so I just think, did our city attorney and city manager cave into the bully and the pressure? I don't like to believe that. But you know, I don't think I could ever get a verbal from you guys to do something like this. And let me tell you, I would, I'm going to repeat, I would never ever fathom of doing something like this in front of City Hall. Don't ever think that I'm not smart. Okay, so you think that Chief Charlie came up with that? It's the reason no one's done that in the past is not because Chief Charlie's smart. You know, so to prevent any scheming tactics and bullying and putting pressure on people, things like that, everything needs to be in writing. That's just, you know, common sense. And no one does that in front of City Hall, because, you know, people understand and they read the code, and they don't want to take advantage of our city, of our public buildings for their own gain. and the optics of us delivering a speech and that city hall, it's like like as if we are endorsing, or city hall is endorsing, or and then not to mention the pressure. I know that on weekends, especially Fridays, that I know I've been told, and quite a few times, that our directors come to work, and I know they come to work on Fridays just randomly. Did you know that they worked or did not work for that day? Well, maybe you found out after the fact, but you didn't know that. But you don't need to know that. You just don't block their entrances. And when you do something like that, you're really intimidating. You're intimidating our staff. And that is something that's not acceptable. So for me, I tend to agree with, I think the last recommendation by Vice Mayor Manzo regarding getting someone to look at this and to shed light onto it, so that we don't think, and someone independent, and I don't know however the council wants to do it, but because it seems like, one side said, yes, you can, the other side said no, and then you've got the city attorney saying something else. And so, I mean, I definitely would entertain something like that if somebody wants to make a recommendation. Thank you.
Do you want to, council, do you want to entertain the issue of, or sending this to an independent source that can give us, can look at this and see if this, what happened was legal?
It looks like Councilman Nguyen want to say something.
Okay.
Councilman
You're
Nguyen,
muted.
you unmute yourself.
My apology. First of all, I would like to thank the city attorney and city staff, make it very clear to what needs to be done and the policy in place. Secondly, I want to thank the city council. Just because you don't know, yes, you can ask the question, but I think it's very clearly from the email that the city attorney sent to the council, as well as what in the staff report, and the same time, the same thing that he said it very clear today. So I have nothing to say about this, but just want to confirm a few points so that you can understand. First of all, I know my rights. As same as everyone else, same as the residents, same as the city council and everyone. I know it that I have the rights. Based on the previous event, Black Lives Matter, and several events that already happened there. And I know that I have the same right. Why do I have? Why don't I have the right as everyone else? So because of that, I know that I can. I can do same as you guys. You guys want to do, you can do it. Just because you don't know, you can ask. That's the reason why I want to confirm with the city attorney and the city manager to make sure that if there is any policy set by the city of Westminster, it's clearly there's no policy, and it's the general law that everybody can do it, and it happened in the past. I want to make sure that the city council know about this. As the council member Ho just mentioned that the staff being pressured. I can tell you that there is no pressure. All I ask, if there is any policy or anything that would prevent me from doing it, and they have to tell the truth. They can't tell me that no, you can't do it. because I will come back why I can't do it. They have to be upfront, and they have to be transparency when they say no. And when they say yes, then they have to know what they are saying. So there's no pressure on staff or anything. Now, talking about approval, I don't think they approve for anything. They just tell me that, okay, it's no policy, that this is the public forums. Everybody can have the same thing for you guys. If you guys want to do it, you guys can do it. No problem. At this point here, there is no policy to prevent you from doing it. Now, talking about the amplify, this is the director for Park and Recreation already mentioned it. This is very small. It's inside. We use in the house. It's not the amplified sound system that we're talking about. Now the banner, you just exaggerate that is go across the hallway. No, the banner is only 3 by 8. It's not that a big banner, and it is a form of free speech. I am talking about it's the First Amendment right for everyone, including the city council. Why am I excluded from that right? Now, don't say that the city endorsing me for this one. The city is not endorsing me for anything. All I ask, and they have to speak the truth for being transparencies. Now, Vice Mayor Manzo was saying that, okay, we speak in Vietnamese. If you go back and go on the YouTube, and you can see that I spoke in English. Half of my speech is in English, and then the half is in Vietnamese. So don't tell me that I say something that you don't know about. And it is there for you to research and find out. Now, as far as the rules and regulation, or what the council member, as well as the city attorney, as well as the city manager said, tell me up front. Let me tell you that the First Amendment of U.S. Constitution protects the right of free, peacefully political speech. And political speech is very highly protected. I can tell you that, especially in the public setting, including public gathering areas commonly open to all residents, including city hall, staff, parks, and parking lots. And and I can refer this to you from the email that the city attorney sent to all of us. He said, note, it's important to note that the entire civic center is essentially a park, and the courts clearly state that parks and public streets are traditional public forums. City Hall is not a park, but it is part of the large civic center. Now, let me go back and tell you that on the day that I have the press conference, once again, I want to tell you that this is a press conference. It's not an event, because you can see that public media are out there on that day. And my invitation to them is also a press conference. If you want to see that, I can more than happy to provide it to you. Or you can ask any of the press media that they were there on that day. Now, is there a public resource that I used? The answer is no public resource was used. No city resource was used for the press conference. No staff support, no city furniture, no equipment, no city assets whatsoever were used for the press conference. It was all done privately because I know I can't use any of city resource for this. I don't, I know the law. I know I don't abuse, but I practice my First Amendment right. Now, all legal restrictions will comply and follow fully. Permit is not needed, as you already heard it from the director of recreation. The press conference lasted no more than an hour and a half. And all advice from city manager and city attorney were complied with. No city ordinance or regulations prohibits this press conference. No blocking of the sidewalk or parking lot. As the city hall was closed on Friday, no city business was negatively impacted or impeded by the event. The event was small and short. No complaint from anyone. No police or fire call. You know that. The police wasn't there. The fire wasn't there. There is no impact by anyone. There's no call. The event, no noise complaint, no traffic congestion. Because why is that? Because I follow the advice from the city attorney and the city manager. I obey. I know that what I have to do in order to comply with that. Now, no city or official logo were used. I know there was an event that the council member used the city logo before campaign for the election. I'm not going to mention it here. That clearly violation of that. But for me, I used no city logo. All banners and logos were private and paid by privately, not this from the city. Again, absolutely no city resource were used. So to be, I am very disappointed that this agenda item is bringing up today, and we are actually wasting public resource, staff time, and taxpayers' fund. You can do whatever you want out there right now. There is no policy yet, and you are protected by the First Amendment. Well, instead of devoting the time and energy to dealing with the important issues in Westminster, you guys are trying to call this meeting because you are desperately trying to, to score petty political points. I can tell you that because anybody can use it. Anybody have the right to do. Why cannot I? And I'm not violating, once again, I did not violate anything. There is no special event needed. There is no amplified sound system. There is no blocking of the blockage of the building. And the city was closed on Friday. And the number of people is just limited. So the fact and the law is completely obeyed. There is nothing was wrong that I'm in violation of. So that's all I want to say. And I understand that because you don't know, you will have the right to bring it up and ask for clarification. But at this point here, I don't think that I violate anything that the city ordinance or any public public rights. So anyway, that's and my concern or anything. If you have any concern or anything, I can answer any question that you might have.
Yeah, I agree with Councilman Wayne's explanation. I don't want to repeat what he just said, but I just want to emphasize a few point. Councilmember Nguyen already asked for advice from our city attorney and our city manager. And our city attorney and our city manager, they are expert, they are professional staff. So basically, they advise Councilmember Nguyen that he would be okay to do so. So city manager and city attorney, they state the fact. That's all. I don't think that our city council, we need to come up with any new policy because we are aware that free speech or any form of free speech, including political speech, is highly protected under the US Constitution. So there is no need for any policy. Talk about a logo. When you talk about a logo, you know, we need to talk about a logo appear on the screen right now. That's the official logo that was approved by the city council that not allow any candidate or any elected official use that in any political material. That's a logo appear on the screen. That considered the official logo that the city council approved. If you want to talk about, a logo. And the banner, you know, we consider like a form of political speech. Councilmember Nguyen, he already asked for advice from city attorney, from our city manager, and they state a fact. That's why Councilmember Nguyen, he had his press conference. I asked from all city council, I think we should need to move on. Our city have a lot of issue, a lot of important issue that we have to deal with. I think our city staff, our community, they want all of us to work together. That's all I ask. All right.
Can I say something real quick?
Please.
You know, I first of all, I just appreciate all the council, city attorneys, well, city manager, inputs on this, and I thank for the report. You know, it's, I heard a community member were talking about infighting in the city council. You know, but just so for I just want to clarify this to all residents of Westminster. You know, the Vietnamese culture, Vietnamese American. You know, we are. Culturally very nice and kind. We don't want to rock the boat. We want to get along. So you know, being Americanized and, you know, standing up and fighting for people is something that most Vietnamese American, especially the voters, do not appreciate it very much. They like to only encourage, you know, the council to unite it. You know, and the thing is, the problem with that, and it's in this society, when united, you become corrupt, you become colluded. It's not independent. It's not something that that the American culture here we do not believe in or support. So that's a distinction between the two culture, and most of us, most average American do not understand. So I just want to clarify that, and for me, and I'm sure that most of the elected officials in this council want to stand up for what's right. We are elected to fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. We got elected so that we can stand up, represent the people who voted for us, who trust us, who believe that we can make a difference. So seeing something that was wrong, we're not going to pretend, you know, we don't see the elephant in the room. You know, this is our responsibility to step up and right the wrong. So I got a couple questions. First of all, I want to start with the city attorney. Okay, so you're talking about this issue on your staff report. You're talking about the entire civic center is essentially treated as a park. Okay, so we understand what the park is, right? So let me ask you this: can the public just like set up picnic lunches? You know, throw out a mat or a towel in front of City Hall staff? I mean, right in front of the area where Councilman Nguyen hosted his campaign kickoff event. Can the public do that?
Yeah, and to go back to the words that Councilmember Nguyen quoted, what I said is
I
the entire civic
well-
center is zoned as open space, public open space. But then the last sentence I said, the city hall is not a park, but it is part of the larger civic center, which is zoned as such. So, yes, first of all, out in the plaza, people do frequently set up, and I see personal trainers, I see all kinds of things happening there. In front of City Hall on the steps, if someone were to do that, we've had issues.
You call the police immediately, is that correct? I mean, the city
Well,
staff will call the police immediately and have them
we
removed, am I correct?
could, and they could
Okay.
come over, but if they're not blocking, we could ask them to move, say this isn't a good place. If someone gets difficult and refuses to move and says, I'm here, we've had this in other cities where they say, we're here to protest homelessness, and they.
So we cannot, just so what you're saying, we cannot ask them to move because it's being treated as a park. So can people set up?
Well, it's not just that
picnic
it's a
in the
park,
parking lot?
it's been used for free speech. So there's limitation. We can set reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions. We just don't have them right now. And I think if we, close it at a certain time, maybe campaigning might be something that we might want to look at. If there's a way to do that, that doesn't violate the First Amendment, these are questions we could ask. But right now, I don't think we have tools.
Right. So I understand you are you're an attorney. You interpret law just like anybody else. Okay. Unless we go with the court precedent, right? The cases that were decided by the court or by the Supreme Court, the law of the land. Am I correct? Okay. So right now you basically interpret what the law is, right?
Yes, we're trying to apply the law to this situation. Yes.
So in this your staff report, you say the whole civic center is basically treated as a park. What's the definition of a park? We can go there, they exercise, they do jumping jack lunges, they do the yoga, they throw a towel down, they can have picnic lunches. So I think this is a totally misrepresentation of what the park is all about. We're talking about this particular area right in front of City Hall, whereas I guarantee you, even when it is on a weekend, when City Hall closed, somebody throw a picnic lunches or a barbecue right in front of City Hall, I guarantee you, the police, somebody in the community or the city staff will have the police kindly ask them to leave immediately. So this. To me, I have a problem with it. Representation of civic center is entirely as a park. Okay, and another thing, when we talk about government code section 8314, okay, so you continue to talking about did it regulate free speech in that particular government code section 8314? Did it say anything about regulating free speech?
Not to my knowledge. Again, you have to ask in any situation. You have the federal constitution would trump federal laws, state laws, local laws, which are in violation of a constitutional right. So the law is valid and it has a valid purpose that is probably a compelling state interest. That when there's city resources involved, it should not be used for a personal purpose or a campaign purpose. So, but to the degree that you try to apply that to a situation where there is no public resources involved and it's merely standing on a parcel, does that law apply? That's the question that we're being asked. If someone's merely standing somewhere, and that's the only thing that's at issue here, it's public land, it's publicly owned sidewalk. That's what we're asking. And I think in that situation, if it's a sidewalk, a park, or it's an area which is, I'm not saying this is a park, and I said that before, it's not a park, it's connected to the civic center. And this area has been used for free speech. So in
the staff report right here, you say essentially everything treated as a park. Right there. It's am I correct?
Yeah,
I mean,
the whole civic
talking
center
about the second page, second paragraph at the bottom.
Yeah. I'm trying to point out the fact that the entire civic center is zoned as such. So it's kind of, it impacts upon this discussion.
Okay, so let me ask you this. So elected official, do they get treated differently from average citizen in terms of limitation in campaign speech versus political speech or freedom of speech? What's the difference?
They shouldn't be.
They shouldn't be?
Not in a
Okay.
public forum, no.
Okay, so the government code did not regulate private citizen freedom of speech, right? Or elected official freedom of speech either. They regulate, like you just say, time, place, and manner. Am I correct?
Well, that government code is targeted at public officials who have access to public resources.
Okay. Okay, good. Yeah. Okay, so basically, we established that there's a difference between private citizen. I mean, there's a protest. If people start marching to City Hall, there's nothing that can stop them. They don't need to pull a permit. Am I correct?
Right. So typically if somebody's going to hold, let's say it's a big event, like a march that is more than 100, it's 500 people. Our code says you got to give like 60 days notice, pull a permit when you're going to do something like that. And we do that with the tech parade. But when let's say it's a highly political or an urgent type issue, a march that's dealing with the recent Supreme Court ruling.
To drop a hat, like Roe versus Wade got overturned. If the people decided to march to City Hall, you need no permit, all right?
Yes.
Right, exactly. So we established that.
What the cases say is that's a hot issue. And if I make them do it 2 months from now, the issue may not be as hot anymore. So we have to accommodate that. Doesn't mean that they shouldn't get a permit. They should, but we need to issue it on an expedited basis. And so what ends up happening is a lot of times people ask for it and sometimes they don't. And then the police kind of accommodate them and they try to say, please stay on the sidewalk. And that's my dealings with those issues. But I do tell the city we have to accommodate it. We have to
I understand because we know that no police department ever issue a citation for people who protest and march on a hot topic issue because it won't apply in court. So we're not talking about private citizen here. We're talking about an elected official who uses who work at City Hall as he's an elected official. He's a councilman, and this particular government code regulate time, place, and manner for elected official to use the city resources to campaign. I mean, it's a campaign activity. It's not a speech. Okay, so I'm really troubled to listen to your interpretation of the law. I understand what you're trying to do to protect interests of all people in this council. Okay, but
and that is it is never.
I appreciate that.
I hope you do because it's very frustrating.
But I understand. But there is a line. There is a line when you have to compare apple to apple, not apple to oranges. Okay, if as a police officer, I read this code. Okay, if I have to read this code, I have to go by what the code was telling me, what I can and cannot do. Okay, in this case, if I have to file a incident report, I have to go with the subsection 8. Okay, what does it say? What the law say about this particular violation? They say it is unlawful for any elected state or local officer. Okay, so in this case, Councilman Nguyen is an elected officer of the city. He's a council member. Okay, he also go with former vice mayor, which is okay. Okay, right? So we established that this. So this particular code relevant to him as an elected official, we established that, right? Okay, and then basically go on include any state or local appointee. That's not the case. He's an elected official. Employee is not an employee. Consultant is not a consultant. Okay, then the next criteria is what? To use or permit others to use. Well, he used it. He didn't permit anybody else. Public resources for a campaign activity. Okay, or personal or other purposes which are not authorized by law. Okay, so campaign, we understand campaign activity, personal. Okay, we can establish a personal. Other purposes would catch all, which we don't know. Okay, what are not authorized by law? We need to do some research to see what are not authorized. Okay, so this particular government code is relevant to Councilman Nguyen campaign kickoff activity. All right, so it's a further say personal purpose mean what? Okay, activity for purpose, which is for personal employment, private gain, or advantage. Okay, or outside endeavor that not relate to state business. Okay, so this is have nothing to do with the city. It's for her personal gain. He want to run for the mayor. Okay, so that's relevant, right? So campaign activity means what? Any activity comes to a contribution. Okay, he might get a contribution at that. Okay, somebody stop up and give him a contribution. You know, to support him for a raise for mayor or an expenditure. Okay, and define these are enumerated laws. Am I correct? Okay, you're not doing anything illegal unless it's specifically cited in statute and listed on the statute that say you cannot do that. Am I correct, City Attorney? You're muted.
Yes, you're correct to the degree that the law applies.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So we cannot pull something out of thin air and say, Councilman Nguyen, you're in violation of this particular code, right? It's have to be enumerated, which is mean listed on the code. Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Okay, and then what? So all right, and then the public resources. You know, this code is very thorough. It defines everything. Okay, so the public resources we're talking about everything, and then one catch the attention of the reader, and a lot of people mention the public common land. Okay, so we're talking about city hall property, land, okay, which is not a park because, you know, you cannot throw a blanket down there and set up a picnic event there, enjoy that in front of that particular area with your family at any time, not just business hour. Okay. And it's also use, the public resources, which is substantially enough to result in a gain or a advantage to the user or loss of the state. So what are we talking about here? Vanessa Johnson? Okay, how much would you have to pay for a permit to have an event on city property? You're muted. You're muted.
Sorry about that. Permit, like a special event permit fee. It's a $100 processing fee. There's no specific fee based to use public property. So if you pick a park to use, it's just $100 processing fee and a $25 deposit.
So maybe Councilman Nguyen tried to save $100 for his mayor's campaign. And instead of having rented a place to have a campaign kick off just like anybody else that I've seen in the town, you know, they have a restaurant, a event where they set it up and they have people coming over, speak, and you know, and doing the just average thing. So and just to save some money. So all of this with this government code, okay, if I have to handle it, I have to prosecute, I mean, to have to look at this, I will go by line, exactly what you just say, and let the court figure it out, which one is unconstitutional, which one not. So, you know, there might be a court case named after Councilman Nguyen, the state of California versus Nguyen. You know, and if the Supreme, they go all the way up to the Supreme Court, and they say, hey, this government code is unconstitutional, and then we will go with that. Okay, that doesn't make any sense. So, so the question is, who enforce this code? So the district attorney, Okay, that's what that's what I learned. Or the state general, attorney general. Okay, so we can have the police department do an incident report and forward to the district attorney and the state attorney general for consideration. They have the right to for just to work for the interest of justice, and they can just throw the case out. Okay, it's okay. They can do that. But so far, this code is relevant to what we talking about. Okay, the government code. So basically, there's a reason. The rules are written the way that we police officers would say. The rules are written in blood. Okay, somebody get hurt, get killed. That's why we have rule and laws. Okay, there's a reason why they put a no left turn sign in the driveway, because if somebody get hit, they're going out and making a left turn. So that's why they put a sign there. So this particular code were written for a reason, because politicians taking advantage of this in the past, using city resources or any governmental resources or elected office resources to campaign, especially running for office or re-election, and that's why they have this code. Okay, so I appreciate what our city attorney interpretation of the code, but so far I don't believe that is the case. So we need to something for this council to consider, that we need to document this incident. Okay, and we can have our police officer who very good with incident reports, need to document this and forward to the district attorney special prosecution unit for consideration of if they have the interest of prosecuting this particular violation. It's only cost $1,000. I'm sure you can pay for that, Councilman Nguyen. So me, just like anybody else, I saw somebody sent me a link of your Councilman Nguyen campaign to run for mayor. Which is you are, instead of run for re-election, District 1, you decide to run for mayor. I mean, more power to you. I have nothing against that. It's a democracy. And then when I saw that, and it was like, I'm wondering if the city sanctioned that event. Okay, and more people contacted me and asked me questions about it. So I have to, we have to look into this, and there's a couple of things here. One is a violation of special event permit. Okay, because it's a amplified sound. I look at the special event application. It check amplified sound, banner. It's a checkbox right here. So there's a violation of that, just for $400. But this particular government code 8314 is basically relevant to what Councilman Nguyen did. Okay, you notice you're not the first one. You're the first one who done something like this, because everyone in this council know they not to do that. Okay, I don't remember Mayor Trita ever done something like that, right? You're a seasoned veteran. And I also I noticed in the video that in attendance I have the former lawmaker Van Tran. He was there. I think he also was the one that did the Quan Tree Monument groundbreaking. Over 100 of people amplify sound. He did not pull a permit on that, and he had the gut to come to city council and lie about it until, I played the audios of reporters who say that there are hundreds of people showing up. It's just basically he had the gut to come to council, this city council, and lie to us. Okay, and then we have another lawyer, Van Quoc Nguyen. He's a Garden Grove School District trustee. So you have all the heavy duty law, the officer of the court who willingly let you. They are elected officials. They're not rookies, and they encourage you and allows you and to do that. That is very unethical. And then Mayor Trita, you was there. Okay, you spoke highly of Councilman Nguyen, supporting him for run for mayor, which is okay. But for you at a an experienced politician over 2 decades in politics. You should know this. You're not supposed to do that, but then you endorse and support him, encourage him to have a campaign kicked off in front of City Hall, which is not a park. Okay, it's a violation of the government code. Okay, so the image of the backing of City Hall, or the image that Councilman Nguyen had the City Hall in his control to scare people, for one, to have to vote for them, or two, to donate to him, to his campaign. So basically, it's implying that if you want to go, you have to go through Councilman Nguyen to go to City Hall. And it's caused the Vietnamese American voter, they very fearful of government, especially say, hey, I have City Hall backing me. There's not, if you want anything, I will protect you. And that is no, it's unethical. We talk about it for years. And with the image of you having a campaign kickoff event activity, you have what the flag ceremony, you have, American anthem, you have the South Vietnam's national anthem playing there. You have podium, you have banner, you have amplified sounds, and you have lots of people blocking the entrance of City Hall. I mean, there's a lot of things that the city manager and the city attorney specifically told you verbally that you're not supposed to do, and it's just like it become your City Hall at that particular time, and that is something that we do not condone, and this is clearly a violation of laws. We're not doing this to attack you or your candidacy. Okay, you are essentially a lawmaker in the city. Okay, you vote for city ordinance to pass, and you have to be a follower. You have to obey the law. You are not above the law, Councilman Nguyen, and neither are you, Mayor Tritai, for you to endorse support Councilman Nguyen, support him in a violation of law. Is unethical, especially you're on the way to, you might be the next lawmaker in Sacramento, and you have also a former lawmaker right there, Van Tran, and seeing this type of activity, you know what, the people will have a wrong impression of what our government is all about. Okay, how government separate the power. You cannot manipulate your power for political gain. You cannot manipulate your elected position for political gain, and that's exactly what this government code section 8314 was written by lawmakers like you, like former State Assemblyman Van Tran. So this is not acceptable. This is not acceptable. So I'm asking the council to have the courage to stop this, to put a stop to this. Okay, no, we cannot. We cannot, like Councilman Nguyen say that, you say you know your rights. No, you did not know your rights, and you know what? But you ignorant of the law, it's not going to fly in court. The court doesn't care if you know about this government code section. When you go to court and you got cited or arrested for a violation, the court doesn't care if you know it or not. Okay, you're violating a code. It's your responsibility to know. So, so you do all this just to avoid to have a event permit, which requires you have to file 60 days in advance, costs $100. Just something very simple, right? The city doesn't need to have any more rules or policy. The government code section 8314 is a catch-all. We don't need to do this. Okay, so So the city council, I will ask city council to basically consider to have number one, have our law enforcement officer to document this as a state code violation and forward to with the help of the city attorney forward to the district attorney office for a special prosecution unit to consider prosecute. Like, and again, they might choose not to, and also the reaching out to the state attorney. Okay, and the code enforcement might consider to issuing a citation. I don't know what is if there's a double jeopardy involved. So that's something to consider. And we also consider to censure both Mayor Tai and Councilman Nguyen for violating the state code while you are acting as an elected official for the city. You know, one is the mayor, the other one is a council person, and that is not acceptable. We're not doing this to punish you. I think we need to send out a strong message to the community that we do not tolerate this. Okay, it's always something, you know. Just a simple campaign kick off at a restaurant, at some private place. We'll take care of all this stuff. And pushing the envelope to the point that you have to violating laws, and that is number one. Unethical. Number two is illegal. And number three, lack of knowledge and understanding of laws. And number four, they try to imply to the Vietnamese American voters that you own this town, you own the city, you own the city hall. You can do whatever you want to get the support. You know, so. With that, I will give up the floor for other council to respond.
Yeah, can I say
my comments?
Please. Can I say it first? Can I say it first?
Councilmember Nguyen, can I have a question for Councilmember Nguyen, Mayor? Councilmember Nguyen, before I ask you a question, I want to just kind of make a comment. It seems to me, reading all this information and just listening to city attorney and the way he's trying to kind of package this together, it seems to me there was a lot of word salad going around. Trying to conflate, saying that these Black Lives Matter protests is the same as a political, an elected official. What we're talking about is 83.8314. We're talking about elected officials. I don't understand why you're bringing in private citizens and protesting, demonstrating, and I don't understand why you're trying to say that you're speaking about that the civic center is a park. We're speaking about the steps in front of City Hall. I don't understand why you bring all that word salad into this conversation. This is not what we're talking about. I think you're trying to, personally, I feel that, you know, that there was something that maybe a mistake was made and you're trying to kind of justify it. That's how my view of what's happening. Because we're talking about elected officials, campaign activity on public property, civics, the City Hall steps. That's all we're talking about. And 8314 is the only thing that we should be focusing on. And it clearly states on there what you can and cannot do. So I don't agree with all those other examples that you brought forward. But I'm still, my question started. My question for Councilmember. Personally, I do not like all this drama. I do not like all this big time away from all council members' time, residents' time, staff time. I was talking about this. Clearly, if you look at it, this was wrong. And the question I have for Councilmember Nguyen is, I'm sure you've been in the city for a long time. You have many friends who support you, that own businesses. You know, they can support you in some way. My question to you is, like, why did you choose City Hall? Like, why not, you know, a restaurant like Councilmember Doe said? Why not some other location that would not have caused all this drama? We're writing, it seems to me that you're writing the gray area, or trying to just find that line where you can just skateboard right on that line. Like, why not you know, Asian Garden Mall on the, you know, somewhere else? Why City Hall? Why there on city steps? Like, we don't need to be doing all this here. Can you please explain to me, like, why you chose this location?
Yeah, before Councilmember Wing answer, I like to respond to Councilmember Doe's statement. I mean, like, I completely shocked. I have to say that I completely shocked with everything from Councilmember Doe. He been on the council for 4 years, and he act like a judge. We in the council meeting, come on. We're not in the court room. I mean, I totally shocked when Councilmember Doe said that many times that Councilmember Wynn was in a violation. Who are you to give that statement? Number one, you're not an attorney. Secondly, I know that you are a police officer. We all know that. But this is a city council meeting, and you're not even a judge. We're not in a courtroom. There is no violation whatsoever. Everything you said could be used against you because you are violating other free speech. And our city attorney already repeat many times. We all know that when you take an oath to be an elected official, to be a council member, to be a mayor, you also need to follow, you take an oath to follow the US Constitution. And we all know that political speech is highly protected in US Constitution. I completely shocked. You repeatedly said Councilmember Wynn was in violation. I was in a violation. For what? For the press conference in front of City Hall? Are you kidding me?
It was not a press conference. It's a campaign activity. It's not.
Well, can I finish?
It's not a press. It requires amplified sound.
And you even
You have a
mentioned
flag
about the
ceremony.
special
The
event
national
permit.
anthem will play.
Let me finish, Councilmember Doe. I listened to you. Now is for your time to listen to others. You even mentioned that a special permit required, a special event permit required. For what? For only 15 to 20 participants. And our director already explained, our city manager already explained, our city attorney already explained, there was not a special event permit. There was not even a special event. How many people participate in that event? Less than 20. And the sound, it was like portable. I can say that that was the portable sound system. I mean, like, you need to look at the city ordinance. You need to study the city law. I completely shocked when you require Councilmember Wynn to have a special event permit. Are you kidding me? Based on what? And you even refer this, press conference for our police? I completely shocked. I don't know, how could you, come up something like that? I'm really sure that our city attorney not going to follow that kind of, thing. I completely really disappointed and shocked. I mean, you more than welcome all of us. We more than welcome to argue and have an argument. But who are you to give a judgment that Councilman Nguyen and myself we in violation for what? For our free speech? Councilman Nguyen.
You are in violations according to the government code section 8134. So I don't make up the rules. I just read
You are
8314.
violating our free speech. Keep it in mind.
Can we let
No, that's a,
the Councilmember answer is, can you let Councilmember Nguyen have his response?
You have to unmute yourself. Councilmember Nguyen, you have to unmute yourself. Councilmember Nguyen, you have to unmute yourself.
I'm very sorry. Okay, I did unmute myself. Okay, thank you. I'm going to answer your question, Vice Mayor Manzo. I already stated earlier, I have the right as well as anybody else, you, the council member, as well as the residents. There are many events happened there before. Why can't I? Am I in violation of anything? The answer is no. I want to assure you that is no. And right now, as far as I understand, if you want to hold a press conference there, you are welcome to use it. I don't think that the city manager, the city council is going to prevent you from freedom of speech. This is a public forums. And the public forums is allow for the resident, for the people to use it. I am not, unlike Council Member Doe, he actually used the city logo, and he was in the council chambers and take a picture and put it on his mailer and mail out to all the residents when he's campaigning for his council in District 3. That is clearly a violation. Okay, this is outside of the building, and this is not in violation of anything. This is a public forums. Once again, it's a public forums.
Councilmember Nguyen, but you haven't.
No. You already said it. It's just my turn. Let me finish it, and then you can talk. Okay.
No, I'm asking you.
Vice Mayor Manzo, you already have your turn. Please let me finish mine. Because you asked me a question, then let me answer it.
Okay.
Now go on to Councilmember Doe. You accuse me all kinds of violations. And the mayor already speak about that. I'm not going to repeat that. But you are in the council member. All you good for your expertise of censoring people, censoring your own college, censoring people who talk about you, censoring the media who talk about you. Is that what you are going to do in this council members, as a council member for this city? Please, we have a lot more to do than this. Instead of censoring and trying to accuse people for nothing that they didn't do. I remember vividly from the beginning, you accused me that I'm standing with Dam Vĩnh Hưng. And that was never, I have never seen Dam Vĩnh Hưng before. That was the start. Now you continue to do it for the last almost 4 years. And until now, you're still doing it. I am very disappointed with you. You can do better things for the people of the city instead of going censoring every one of us. Who else are you going to censor? The next thing, I am just once again, I am no in violation of anything. I know my rights, and my rights is not different as well as any resident in the city. And at the same time, I want to repeat, I used no resources, city resources. I did not block anybody from, and the city was closed on Friday. There's no business on Friday. There is no complaining. There is no police come by or fire truck or anything. there's only a short period of time for press conference. You guys calling it event. Once again, I tell you it's a press conference, and I invite the press and media, and I have the letters that saying about which is press conference. Okay, so again, I want to assure you that I did not pressure city staff or city attorney, and I didn't use any of them. They were not there. All the equipment that I have is my own, and it's not tied to any post of the city. It's freestanding. Even the banner that myself, it is freestanding. And again, it's not an amplified sound system as council member Doe said. It's a portable. It's a small portable. You can see it. It's just very small portable. So again, as a council, I want to let you know, if you don't know, you can bring it up and ask. But once you know about it, you have the rights as well as anybody else. And if you go ahead and do the things that you want to do, you are welcome to do so. But I want to tell you that, like the city attorney already said, he already consult with with many other city attorneys, and they all confirm that it is the right for the people to use the public forum. And since this incident happened, I also consult with my own attorneys, and they are saying that it's okay. Now, if you want to proceed, well, you are welcome to do what you need to do. If you have the 3 vote, you can do it. But I strongly encourage you that don't do anything that to stop people from their First Amendment right. And this is the First Amendment right. And once again, I repeat it very clearly, political speech is very highly protected. And I'm not going to say anything. You'll go ahead and decide and do whatever you need to do.
Hey, Councilmember Nguyen, first, thank you for explaining everything all over again. You already said that on your previous statement, but you still did not answer my question as why this location. There's never been a question, Councilmember Nguyen, about restricting your free speech. Never. Nobody has ever said anything about restricting your free speech. That's not what we're even talking about. The topic is political activity on public property in front of City Hall, not about free speech. This is not a free speech issue. This is about where you chose to do your political, your campaign event. So my question again my question to you wasn't what you were in violation of or you were in the rule of. My question to you again was, why this location? Why not somewhere else?
Let me answer you that particular question. Oh, the public forums is so good for everyone to do it, and I see that it's good for me too, and I like it. Okay, I have my own choice. I don't have to be restricted myself not to use it when there are people can use it. You can use it too. I am not telling you that you can't.
Thank you.
Can I answer? Well, can I answer Councilman Nguyen a question and follow up with?
Let me. I just want to say a couple more things. I'm not interested in Councilmember Doe. I'm not interested in censure anybody, Councilmember Nguyen or the mayor. I am interested in sending this somewhere else to see if there was to me there is a violation if you read it. So I think the interpretation of the city attorney is wrong. I'm interested in sending this to the DA, AG, but I'm not interested in censuring. Again, I don't want drama. To me, this is not something that's beneficial to our community. But again, we cannot stay silent when there's wrongdoing. I do not, I wish, I know that Councilmember Nguyen, at least I want to wish he does. I hope that he knows that this is something that probably shouldn't have been done in this location. It's not a question of, to me, it was ethically wrong, and that's the gist. It clearly, the 8314 clearly states that you cannot do it there. And if nobody's in agreement with me, if nobody's in agreement with Councilmember Doe or whoever, let's send it to the DA and the AG. Let them figure out if they could, whatever the answer they come back, then fine. But I just have a problem why you choose to have this drama in our community. Like, why not do it at your friend's restaurant? Why here? Why there?
I say that I did agree, as I mentioned earlier in my little the speech, that I did think it is, at the minimum, it is an unethical, decision or behavior, or so I know at the minimum it is unethical. So I have to go. It's already been 4 hours. I think going on to 5 hours. So we've been going at it for quite a long time. So I'd like to take this under submission, and then we can do whatever we want at the next meeting.
Mayor,
Can I make a motion to have the incident documented by our unbiased police officer, and then forwarded the information to whatever entity, the government entity, and let them make a decision? This is not. This is basically we have to set precedent. We cannot allow this. We cannot have everybody want to run something and they set camp in front of City Hall. I think it's unethical, and it has to stop. And I hope none of our elected official will venture after that event and do the same thing Councilman Nguyen do. So that's my motion.
I'll second it.
Mayor and Council, if I can jump in here, I've listened to everyone's concerns for the last 4 hours, as Councilmember Ho has stated. This is one of those instances where the $1 million question seems to be everyone's concern is this legal? And also the subset of that is this ethical? It is true, with the phone call, and I know we've all replayed what the circumstances were. There was a phone call, there was a brief discussion, and things in the staff report that stated things that Councilmember Nguyen was advised to follow or not follow. At the end of the day, this was indeed legal. There's no permission that needed to be granted. So I just want to make that clear that Councilmember Nguyen asked if he could legally have a press conference in front of City Hall to announce his candidacy. There's no permission to be granted regarding that in the instance that it was legal. The other question is political speech and campaigning protected as free speech? And that was another question that was posed, and our city attorney, responded to that as well. Did anything Councilmember Nguyen do trigger a special event permit, regardless of what it was advertised as, a press conference or anything that would trigger criteria under our special event permit, regardless of what it's advertised, it would have triggered a special event permit. There was discussion about a park use permit. I will say that should not have been required. A park use permit is really just it's just an informational tool, which we discovered that at the end of the day, it really doesn't mean anything. It's just to ensure that we have staff on hand that will allow for an event to take place at a park, but it doesn't actually give permission for the event to take place or not take place. If an event was essentially moved for whatever reason, it may have been triggered most likely based on the number of people. That day on Friday, and I do have to clear this up. City Hall was closed for public access, but we do have employees that, whether they're our CPU officers or IT department, yard, they do have access to this building and do go in and out, as well as some staff members as well. So I do want to make that clear. And also in an organizational standpoint, the city in no way is endorsing any particular candidate regardless. And based on the press conference that took place, the city definitely did not endorse Councilmember Nguyen. So I just want to make that clear for members of the public. I do want to say there is not, there was not a level of bullying. Or, there was not bullying. If anyone's wondering about that, anyone that knows me knows that I'm not intimidated. But again, it boils down to advice on whether this was legal or not. There's discussion of logo and seal. Our ordinance does state that there is a logo and a seal, and it does depict what those look like. So we just want to clear that up as well. I understand the need for asking for things in writing. I wholeheartedly support things that are placed in writing. The only thing about something like spontaneous demonstrations, we haven't asked it in the past for things in writing. And so that just has not been in play. There are, times that, putting my clerk hat down, where you've had people, especially during the candidate nomination period, they'll go outside and do their little mini press conference in front of City Hall stating, I just filed papers, I just turned in my nomination papers, whatever the case may be. As long as they weren't blocking, they weren't kicked out. Granted, they did not have a podium and flags and a giant banner in the background, but the act of it, taking place did happen. And so, I just want to make it clear, no permission was being asked. There was no permission being granted.
Christine, I appreciate your forward, and I completely understand what transpired. So, at this point, you are not involved in this. You and the city attorney was not in. There's no implication that you authorize this event. Also the Councilman Nguyen admit that you did not give them any permission. He believed that he have the right to do so, and he went ahead and take full responsibility of it. So I appreciate your comment. And again, we always, me myself, I still very admire your leadership and appreciate your leadership. This is just something that's just slipped through unexpected, and so we're not. There's no implication, at least on my part, that you bend to pressure. So I just wanted you to know that.
If I may just say, I just want to comment that if anything, for right now, I just want to say to Christian and to Christine that number one, when in doubt, you check. You don't just give an answer like right in the parking lot or right on the phone or whatever. You don't do that to me, so you shouldn't be doing it to anybody. And just shoot off a reply or response. And the other is that it's good policy to just have everything in writing. And then if you say that there's no permission to grant, then let it not be misunderstood, because you did have a conversation. So I don't understand. Then you would just say permission to grant, and you do whatever you want, but you are responsible for your actions. Then you need to have that very, very explicit disclosure. To me, I think it is just not a good policy to do a verbal. And I already said that, I'm going to repeat that again. But I just don't want to hear, excuses. And then right now, I think we have so many more questions than answers as to what's right, what's wrong. So, I'm all for the investigation. It's just, number one, if anything, is to shed light on what's right and what's wrong, and so that we can move forward and be really clear on that, because even the city attorney is not even sure, but then there are a lot of things that you were not even sure when you had that conversation, whether that conversation was to acknowledge or to approve the event, or the if you don't call it event, then what do you call it? Then when you acknowledge it, not knowing any other details, that's irresponsible. at the minimum. At the minimum, it's irresponsible. Not knowing what are you going to be doing? Okay, so you got to be really clear. So if that's why it's good to just have whatever it is in writing, not to say that you have to absolutely have in writing, but just so you know what you're agreeing to, and the other party knows what the question was, and be reminded what you would agree to. And because now it's kind of like, well, we didn't know there's this big backdrop and this whatever, and let's say, I mean, for me, I'd have to say, and many people that went before me, all these years, I've never seen anything like that. Okay, I know I've only been at City Hall for 6 years, but I've never seen anybody do anything like take advantage of our city and our buildings and all that. Never ever. I myself would never ethically make a decision, because it's an ethical decision, because I wouldn't walk that fine line, and I couldn't cross the line. And I think this is like, did we cross the line, or did we walk the fine line and we're on that fine line, or what? So the investigation should shed some light. And so I'm all for that. Whereas for myself, if I'm going to do something like that, I've done press conferences where I had to pay for the East-West room. And I think you guys have seen that, where I've had, many, media groups that came, but not necessarily that many people in the audience. So, but, I paid for it. It wasn't like, so yeah, you're privileged to use a public building, pay for it, don't get anything for free, don't take advantage of it. So again, I feel like we're not going to get all of our answers today. And I concur with Vice Mayor Monza that we're not going to sanction. I'm just all about, hey, if we have a question, we should be able to bring it up and discuss it. And we're not trying to, shall I say, have infightings or back to that or whatever people are thinking. But it's a good thing moving forward that we are very clear of what we can and cannot do, because there is someone here who's taking advantage or walking that fine line. So in other words, could we just vote and move along, because I call the question since we already have a second.
I know Councilmember Doe made a, I rather that, because this involves the city, I'd rather that we don't use our officers, that we go to, an outside investigator for it, just to keep it neutral.
The one thing I don't want to get you, the city manager and the city attorney involved in this, we need to, I believe an officer can do a thorough documentation of this incident. We don't have to go to another private investigator and spend money. We can have some, I have faith in any patrol level police officer can handle this and can document the fact finding. They can go to court and testify, and with the high credibility that they do not take sides. So I understand, but I do not want the city manager or the city attorney to get personally involved and direct anyone dealing with the investigation. I just want to isolate you two from that responsibility. You can have someone from other agency to come and do a courtesy report, or you can have our police department to file a incident report just to document exactly what happened, and that's it. So nobody's going to question our officer, because they have integrity. They cannot lie. They have to be truthful, because they have to answer whether as to in cross-examination in court. They have. I do 100% believe in our police department can handle documentation. And again, they're very neutral. They're not trying to take sides, just document exactly what happened. Does that make any sense?
And just for record, just for record that I
a violation is a violation. Doesn't matter where
as I told you that there is no favoritism here, but I did consult with their city attorney, not once, but 2 or 3 times. okay, on the same night. And I did consult with the city manager. I want to keep that as a record. And they did say that there is no law or regulation or ordinance govern it. And I am okay to have the press conference there. So do whatever you need to do, but that's what I want to have it at record.
Yeah, I have to go. I have to go back to work. I mean, it's been
Okay.
2 hours. So if we can wrap this up, I greatly appreciate it.
Go ahead.
Lucy?
Clarify the motion one more time.
So the motion was made by Councilmember Doe, seconded by Vice Mayor Monzo, and that was to have the Westminster Police Department document the incident and then forward to a government entity to make the decision.
Okay, the district
Can I
attorney
just
office in
mention-
Orange County and the attorney general office.
Yeah, the only problem I have with that is that I don't know that they're going to actually look at the legality. I mean, I guess they would if they thought there was a criminal matter. Even the code section, the 8314 is a civil matter. So I guess my preference would be that you actually have somebody who knows the First Amendment analyzes. I'm very confident in what's been said. So have somebody independent analyze this from a First Amendment standpoint and provide the council with.
Okay, you know what? I appreciate it, Christians, but this incident is a violation of a government code. Okay, it doesn't matter what kind of a violation or who violated it. We just we need to have a peace officer to document this incident and thoroughly investigate and talk to all parties involved and just fact-finding mission. We're not trying to persecute anybody. We just want to have
My
someone.
character's been called into question multiple times and influence, which is not the case. And I've sought to find the fine line between
I understand, Christian,
advising
yeah,
the council, and it
appreciate that.
frustrates
Thank
me
you,
to
sir.
no end.
Can we amend it just to say police officer, not necessarily Westminster PD, if we can keep my Westminster PD out of it? I just like to remain neutral if we can.
Okay.
What took
I like
place?
to amend that.
So you're gonna have
I
you're gonna have a police officer from another city come into our city. Do they have jurisdiction to come in our city and take a report?
I will have to figure that out because I don't know. That is an interesting concept, but that would be the issue. I'm trying to keep as much as I can the officers because they are city employees. This is connected to city business in some way. So I just want to keep them out of it as much as possible.
I tend to agree with that. I really think so. We need to protect them from having to deal with issues in their own city.
Okay, that's fine, but I don't think that as police officers backbiting. I don't have a problem with doing any of that stuff as long as it's truthful.
Yeah,
that's it. So I don't have a problem with that. You can do whatever, but try to insulate yourself as much as possible. That's my intention.
Of course.
Okay, so we'll correct that to say just police officer, and the maker of the motion and the second has agreed with that. Councilmember Doe?
Yes.
Councilmember Ho?
Yes.
Councilmember Nguyen?
No.
And Mayor Ta. Excuse me, Vice Mayor Monzo
Yes.
and Mayor Ta.
No.
Motion carries 3-2.
All right, so that we don't have any other item on agenda. The next regular meeting will be on Wednesday, July 13, 2022 at 7 p.m. Meeting adjourned.